From the Styrian Mountains to the Eiffel Mountains, the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Masters touches down for the final weekend in the 2021 season. Across 5 previous weekends and 10 different races, we've seen 5 winners, but just 2 are left standing. With 3 victories each, but after very different seasons, just 3 points separates 2 VRS SCO cars at the top of the championship. 2 hours and 2 races at the Nürburgring will decide it all. Will it be Joshua Rogers and Mitchell de Jong taking championship honors, or will Dane Warren and Charlie Collins spoil the party as we go racing for the final time this season on the road to $25,000? Welcome back to RaceSpotTV. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, alongside, as always, is Lewis McLeod. No Hugo Luis in action. He's left me in charge of the entire show. And Lewis, what a show we've been in for over the past 10 hours of action. 2 more to decide it all, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here at the Nürburgring.
Yeah, it's been a brilliant season so far. We've had fantastic action all the way through, all culminating in the previous round at Austria, where we saw plenty of drama. It was all in the hands of the number 93. Drama in race 1, they dropped back. 91 took advantage, and again so in that previous race. And going into the Nürburgring, you're saying it there, it's super tight. Now you've got a team which is experienced with dealing with championships, with racing at the top end, against Charlie Collins, Dane Warren, who have plenty of experience themselves, but maybe in this sense that lack of experience might help, might hurt, who knows.
But always, I think being young is an advantage in some ways when it comes to racing at this sort of a level. Just not having that pressure on yourselves, and we'll see if Dane Warren and Charlie Collins can recover. They were a little bit weaker than I thought they would be at the Red Bull Ring. Of course, they did have lots of contact in race number 1 that they had to fight back from. They showed that championship mentality. Let's take a look at the schedule, Lewis. It has been so much fun as we've gone on a grand tour of Europe. We finish at the shortest track on the entire calendar, the Nürburgring, and its sprint Strecker layout.
Yeah, it's a great track. I mean, in a sense that the Nürburgring Grand Prix, Sprint Strecker, either one of those, like they are good circuits. Grand Prix, they're quite hard to overtake at, but the Sprint Strecker, as much as you remove that likes of the Dunlop hairpin and that such, you remove the Schumacher S, there's still that tight hairpin as you switch from one end of the Grand Prix over to the other, skipping off that final sector. It's perfect for overtaking. It's such a hard corner with the downhill nature. It's very bumpy. The track has its undulations, has its ups and downs, has its openness for racing, especially when it comes to GT3 racing. It's a great way to end the season. I'm sure we're in for a highly dramatic finale.
We had some fun yesterday as the GT4s went racing in the Sprint Challenge. Here's a look at your event format. 2 different races, 2 different qualifying sessions, and we've been saying it over the course of the previous 5 rounds list. There is nowhere to hide as drivers have to share the duties across these 2 events.
You need to be the complete package, not as a driver, but as a team. You both need to be performing on all cylinders, which, as much as we've seen 2 different races each time we've gone racing, race 1 and race 2 have been wildly different, as expected, following on from this kind of format where one driver does qualifying, then the other driver does the next qualifying, but then they have to start the race. It's all very interesting and great to watch. The fact that we have these 2 drivers, everyone does a qualifying, everyone does a race start, everyone does a race end. You need to be complete. At the moment, realistically, only 2 teams we can say, or 2 cars rather, 1 team, we can say that have really launched their way into the top of that, and that of course is VRS SCO and SimSport, the 91 versus the 93. Throughout the season so far, of the 10 hours of racing that we've had, they have been near bulletproof.
And so what are they fighting for? Well, their share of $25,000. It is a prize pool worthy of a World Championship moniker and a point structure that those of you that watch MotoGP will be familiar with. 25 points for a race win, all the way down to a solitary 1 point for finishing down in 15th position. About half the grid then does take points, along with a bonus point going to your pole position / fastest qualifier, depending on how you want to put it. It's a point structure, though, Lewis, that ultimately rewards winning, and that's going to be crucial here today as we take a look at these championship standings. 3 points, that's it. 3 points separates the VRS SCO and the 91 and the 93, but there is also a very interesting fight for 3rd place in the championship.
Yeah, there's prize money up for all of it. Of course, our focus does naturally go to the top of the standings and that thrilling fight between the two VRS Commander cars. With it being that tight of a margin, basically, if you want to put it as simple as possible, whoever wins, wins. It is that simple. Go and win the race. If you win both races, it's done. It's sorted. If you win one, don't win the second, things become a little bit more complicated as to what happens and where you have to be. But realistically speaking, they are both just targeting the victories, and that's what makes it so exciting. And where they've been close a couple of times this season, and sometimes even a little bit too close a couple of times this season, thinking back to Barcelona and such, we've had the thrilling fights all the way through, and I'm sure between those two, normally we don't necessarily want a VRS Commander SimSport front row lockout in the sense if we know what they're like, they just clear off into the distance and run away. However, today might be a little bit different. I'd be well up for that.
And we know that neither of us are allowed to pick the 91 or the 93 when it comes to our predictions. I was horrible, let's be honest. At the Red Bull Ring, I had the commentator's curse well and truly in my hand. Throughout the course of the season, though, we've had the opportunity to ride around these tracks with some of the fastest names in all of sim racing. One final time, let's go ride around the Nürburgring and the Sprint Strecker with VRS coach Jeremy Bouteloup.
Welcome to the VRS circuit walk for the final race weekend of the VRS SCO Sprint Masters at the Nürburgring. I'm VRS driver coach Jeremy Bouteloup, driver of the number 81 VRS Commander SimSport racing in the Mercedes AMG GT3. While the Nürburgring is famous for the 13-mile Nordschleife, this weekend we'll be racing on the short and sprint Strecker layout, and it's not often that this layout gets used for top-level sim racing events, and thus will mark yet another change of pace for drivers in what has been a championship full of new and unique layouts. Join me while we take a peek of what this tricky alternate layout has in store. While there are some interesting modifications to this shorter layout, the first sector remains the same. That means we have the fun combo of the long front straight into the hard braking zone of turn 1. With a top speed of about 230 kph into the braking zone and needing to get the car down to about 60 for the apex of turn 1, this will make it one of the best passing areas on track. And with how wide the track is at turn 1, you can fully expect some bold moves here to start the race. Coming off turn 1, the Mercedes arena is going to be the same as well. Turn 2 is particularly important as the next corner is a place someone could make a dive to try and pick up spots. On top of that, turn 3 and 4 flow together, so it's important to run a line off of turn 3 that sets you up for the entry of turn 4. This is the corner that makes the layout where it is. We'll be cutting the downhill section entirely, so while the corner itself isn't that tight, this part of the track is quite narrow, so while passing is possible, it's not going to be easy. Expect some mistakes here, as most drivers will be used to the flow of the GP circuit, so while people have thousands of laps around there, not that many are used to taking this right-hander. A smaller shakeup is the chicane. Many of the GT series typically run the faster GT style chicane. However, this layout has a tighter chicane typically seen in Formula 1. As such, it becomes a better passing opportunity. Plus, like we've seen at Zolder and Monza, the chicane is quite technical and you need to know exactly how much curb you can take to maximize the speed, yet not take too much so that you don't lose the car. Now that we've gone over some of the highlights, let's watch an onboard lap of this short alternate circuit. Alright, so here we are on board of the Mercedes AMG GT3, getting nicely out of the last corner into the straight here, trying to carry as much speed as possible, very important, before heading into turn 1, which is going to be a hard braking zone. Braking at 100 here, super hard as I said, to the left side of the track, then looking to the bollard, and nicely on exit here on throttle, smoothly, then heading towards turn 2, where we're going to try and take a late apex to maximize the exit completely on the right side of the track. Then to turn 3 and 4, where patience is going to be important into and out of turn 3 to set up turn 4 nicely, hitting the curb here on the inside, then tracking out as much as possible on the left, then approaching turn 5 completely on the left, braking at 100 here, slowing down the car nicely, staying to the inside, back on throttle carefully, tracking out to the left here, then back to the right for left-right, going on the curb on the inside, moving out here to the outside as much as possible, back to the left, to the right again, onto the curb here a little bit, and then just making sure to get a clean exit here, which is going to be very important because then there's another straight where top speed is going to be key. Now by the end of it, there's going to be another hard braking zone here for the slow chicane. Braking at 100, taking the curbs really important, so a little bit the first one, more the second one, putting the car straight as much as possible, staying on the left and preparing for the last corner, crucial. Going to the inside here, carefully back on throttle, opening up the steering wheel, on the curb on exit, and then just maximizing everything, then crossing the start finish line to finish the lap. That's it. Thanks for watching the VRS circuit walk for the final round of the VRS SCO Sprint Master Series at the Nürburgring. With $25,000 up for grabs, this will be a spicy one.
And so, as qualifying just gets underway for one final time this season, let's go hear from the drivers themselves. Let's go hear some fake engine noises.
I just need to pull up the schedule so I can actually see.
So I haven't really looked past the schedule, past round 1. So I guess Hockenheim, because this is round 1.
Just give me a moment.
Not a strong point for the championship, in my opinion. But if I had to give a favourite track, it probably for now would be the Red Bull Ring.
My favorite track probably is Hockenheimring and Nürburgring on the schedule. They are extremely nice tracks. They are of course German, and me as a German, they of course have a plus point for me, and I really like to race on them.
I think it's gonna be Barcelona. Yeah, or Monza, but probably Barcelona with these cars.
I don't know all the tracks on the schedule, but I'm definitely looking forward to Red Bull Ring the most.
I'm really looking forward to the Red Bull Ring. I think a new track for iRacing is always adds like that extra level of challenge.
If it's done on the pace over 1 hour, and if all cars are within a second, 2 seconds, you're good.
Obviously, that's completely unknown as to how the BOP is going to change throughout the season. I think it's obviously going to be very dependent on which cars are strongest at which circuits.
And every car has its strengths and weaknesses, so it's got to be adjusted from track to track, obviously. It's really hard to always get the best balance, but I'm confident that over a whole season, every car will have the same chances to win the championship.
In pre-qualifying, it seemed like the Porsche was the fastest car, and after that, Merc and Lambo. So I would expect the Porsche to get hit the most, especially because they have the fastest teams.
Yeah, that's also a new format to that, and changing BOP for every race, that's something you never really have in the official side of iRacing. So it's going to be even harder there, and it's going to change a lot of results in every single race, because there's always going to be a car which is faster than anyone else, and there's also ever going to be a car which is slower than any other car. It is just not really possible to make a perfect BOP, so there's going to be a lot of discussion prior to every single race, and yeah, every single practice session probably. So it's going to be a hard one for everyone, and everybody just needs to give everything and get the best out of the BOP.
So when it comes to BOP, this is obviously very interesting. I'm in the car, or in the same car as some really fast guys, so people like Josh and Dane can potentially be really annoying, where they may make the car look a little bit faster than it actually is, which might not benefit me. So yeah, I hope this doesn't hurt me too much, but I guess we'll see through the season.
Can I say no to this question?
Yeah, I think I will pass on that one.
I mean, I guess the engine sounds something like this. You really didn't expect it to do that, did you?
I mean, this is perfection when it comes to car sounds, in my opinion. So, I mean, we could try and replicate this. There you go. Here's something.
There it goes. I don't know.
So yeah, the car sound of the GT3R. I think it goes something like this.
Car goes brrrr.
So great to have some fun with the drivers, and if you want to win one of your own beautiful LEGO 911 RSR kits, you can head to giveaway.sportscaropen.com. Not much time to get yourself entered though. The giveaway closes before the end of this broadcast, and ultimately one more of these Legos to give away, Lewis, and I think they'll have a lot of fun, whoever wins, putting this together. But everyone knows, season-long giveaway of a VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase. That is what I think all of these drivers want. A bit of the hardware that some of these drivers during today's action will be using.
It's one of those things that can make the difference between being all right, being comfortable, enjoying sim racing, and taking that extra step to move forward in sim racing, give you that extra definition, that extra feel. So, what a prize it would be. Someone's got to win it. Someone has to win it. Could be you.
So, yeah, someone's got to win it. Can't be two of us, apparently. Why not you? So, giveaway.sportscaropen.com one final time. Not much time for you to get yourself entered. Before we get to the qualifying action, we, as always, have driver webcams from every single one of our drivers, so we'll get onboard looks throughout the course of the next 2 hours of racing action. You can see Martin Kroenke watching on as his teammate gets underway with the qualifying duties. Corentin Gunes right in the middle, focused, as is Julian Sun. And one final qualifying session for these drivers. They know the pressure's on because this is crunch time, Lewis. This is qualifying. Already 6 minutes done in our 20-minute session. The times are coming in, and would you guess who's at the pole position? The team that took pole last time we went racing from the Red Bull Ring. It is Kova in their BMW.
Would be quite fitting for Kova to top it out towards the end of the season. We know how good they are. They're a quality team, battling for third in the championship. So they are here to fight. They may not be in title contention, but they certainly want to get a good couple of results onto the board so they can at least leave the season head up, prize money in hand, and feeling confident for the future.
Oh, and also just an update. 2 minutes left to go to giveaway.sportscaropen.com to enter yourself for both the season-long giveaway of the Direct Force Pro and that final 911 RSR kit. So giveaway.sportscaropen, I've been told to plug it as much as I feel comfortable doing, and I tell you what, 2 minutes for what has been a very fun summer of giveaways. We've had so much fun giving prizes across the globe, but here in qualifying, no prizes are handed out. You have to earn it. The shortest layout that we've had this entire season, some very interesting corner names, and I don't think draft is going to be as important as we've seen at the likes of Monza and the Red Bull Ring. So it is very interesting here, Lewis, to see this train of cars coming across the start-finish line.
Yeah, it's a different challenge than quite a lot of the other circuits that we've been to. It's one where you don't need to be in the train at all. Go out and do your own thing. Sure, slipstream helps because it's around here with these slower speed corners that we have, riding on board with Kova on the rear end of the R8G car at the moment. Thomas Tattler behind the wheel at the moment of this one. Soinen behind the wheel of the R8G sports car as one of the VRS commanders gets out of the way. Like I say, you can just do as you're doing. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Don't try and fight the slipstream. It'll help because quite a lot of the corners are slow speed, meaning that dirty air and stuff won't be of a negative impact. It's not really in GT3s anyway. But still, even then, traffic does cause problems. I mean, all these cars that have just gotten out of the way, they're distractions for every single corner you've come through. And that is a problem. And for Tattler at the moment, I mean, how typical Kova is that? Not even a remote problem, just driving around by yourself.
I always wonder how calm these drivers are, especially the Finnish guys, in comparison to some of their other competitors. But what we've seen is not that flustered by anything. A bit of a bump over the curbs, and the curbs are something interesting as Tattler comes down into pit road, Lewis. We saw on a number of occasions yesterday in that sprint challenge race, drivers getting caught out by slow down penalties. That is going to be crucial. Yeah. How perfectly can drivers mount the curbs in not just the final section on the track, but even through turn number 1. I've seen on occasion drivers getting very, very aggressive through the inside of turn 1.
So, like, I mean, with the final chicane in particular, because it's mostly the second curb. It's the curb on the right-hand side that causes the big problems when it comes to the slow-down penalties. And the general rule of thumb is over that curb, that second curb, in the chicane. As long as your left-hand side tyres, or basically what would be classified as the outside wheels, either side, whichever way you want to look at it, as long as they are in contact with effectively the white line, i.e. the track surface itself, you won't get a slowdown. You might be pushing it a bit close, but you shouldn't get a slowdown by doing that, and that's, like, as a general rule of thumb, is normally a good one to follow. However, you're sat behind someone, you've got minimal visibility, you can only just about judge your turn-in point. You're in a big car, you're sat in it, of course, you know, in iRacing, obviously everyone I'm sure knows, you're always driving from cockpit. You don't really have much of an option. That is just about right from Martin Croquet. A little bit further over to the right-hand side, it would, in the race, be a slowdown penalty. Even qualifying, it would be a lap cancelled anyway.
Apex have gone to 5th and 7th. Inex in their Ferrari have just jumped up to the 8th position as we get past the halfway marker. Croquet across the line, 2/10 slower than his best lap. He will not improve, but he is sitting very, very comfortable in 2nd position. Championship rivals, well, let's take a brief look at them. The 93 car, provisional 2nd, down onto pit road. Dane Warren doing qualifying duties for their duo. That will mean that he starts race number 1, which I don't think we've seen him do recently. Kind of a flip-flop here, where we've seen Warren kind of qualifying in race 2 and then completing race number 2. Be interesting to see how that works out. Mitchell de Jong, though, tucked up right now just in front of the R&R competition BMW, who went through several stages of heartbreak from the Red Bull Ring. Race number 1 didn't necessarily go their way, and race number 2 definitely didn't go their way. Pole position, and then turned around through turn number 1, contact with the BS Plus competition car. Mitchell de Jong on qualifying duties here, and well, he's slowing himself down. He needs to put in a good lap here, Lewis. They're in 13th position.
Yeah, this is not great from Mitchell de Jong right now. Needs to get after the 93 car that sat up in 3rd position, taking that really, really wide line through the final corner of the racetrack and riding around this super short run. Shortest track on the calendar, shorter than Zolder. And so Mitchell de Jong right now with a lot of pressure on. I've said it before with racing and stuff, I've always hated qualifying on short tracks, because on a longer track you think some of the longer circuits that we've been to over the season, or even not just longer, the more complicated circuits that we've been to over the season, you can afford imperfections, not mistakes, but imperfections on your lap, because losing a few hundredths here, a few hundredths there, you're not actually going to lose out too much. Around a short circuit like this, your lap needs to be absolutely perfect. Perfect speed through every corner, every single apex hit at the maximum of it. It is a completely different ball game qualifying around here than, say, for example, at Barcelona, where you can afford a couple of little bits here and there and it not actually costing you too much.
I will say, I enjoy that we're not running the traditional Grand Prix layout, not because I hate the Dunlop hairpin or the Schumacher S or anything like that, just something different for these drivers. Definitely not a layout that they would likely be accustomed to, familiar with, and I think what we saw at the Red Bull Ring, the first competitive race that we've really seen around the Styrian Mountains, is the order being shaken up. What will the lap time be then for Mitchell de Jong out of the final corner? He works a 1:25.269 is his best lap time. It's a 1:29, should improve him, but only to 6th position. And I say only to 6th position. That is a very big jump, but what we're seeing once more here, Lewis, is other than the Kova and VRS gap out front, which is just over 1/10 of a second, everyone else separated by hundredths, if not thousandths of a second. The 93 and the 78 car, 3rd and 4th position, 2 thousandths between those two cars.
And it's important for them because, I say, 91, that they don't care about anyone else. They could be fighting over last and last. Doesn't really matter as long as they are with the 93. It's all well and good. That is their target. They have eyes for only one car. Not even that bothered about who wins this race. Obviously they want to win, that's what we're all here for, but realistically speaking, as long as it's not the 93, they're all well and good. And so for Mitchell de Jong right now, eyes only for Dane Warren. But of course, what that does mean is that for the first time since round 2 of the season, as we see Felix Kernbach come across the line after that fantastic victory for BS competition in race 1 at Austria, for the first time since round 2, or technically round 4, the 4th race of the championship, we'll get to see Charlie Collins versus Josh Rogers, which is always a battle which we're excited for. Definitely put up a fight at Barcelona.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Lewis, but Collins was quite respectful of Rogers earlier in the season. With the championship on the line, I'd have to wonder how aggressive they're going to be as the big green machine of Tim Matska running a bit wide, getting, I think, an incident point that would have invalidated his lap time. He pulls out of the way of the Inex Racing Ferrari with Jack Sedgwick behind the wheel. I saw some images posted on social media. Jack Sedgwick had a bit of a jack flip in practice. He'll be hoping to avoid any sort of carnage this time around as the 93 car improves to second. Now 900ths between Kova and Dane Warren in that second position. The championship battle, well, we said you might need to win both races. Only one team has done that in this season so far, and guess what? It was the 93 car as we went racing at the Temple of Speed.
Yeah, fantastic round for them at Monza. Great tactical racing and brilliant stuff. I mean, it was a fantastic race. Only just made it to locking out the top spot in both races. And by only just, I mean it was by a few thousandths of a second. Of course, beating out Apex Racing in that Lamborghini running around the very last corner of the racetrack in one of probably the most thrilling moments that we've had, not only in the season, but to be honest, in sim racing in general across the year. It was such a close fought race, and yeah, great to see. I'm a little bit like, not you know, I like the 93, don't get me wrong, like myself some VRS Commander, but I think everyone was just like, oh, it would have been so good to see Apex win that race.
and I mean, as we came across the line, you could just see, I mean, you said, Jamie Fluke, go give him a hug, and I think that was the only way to describe the emotions from what happened there. And of course, these guys still in a fight with the Kova car in current pole position for third place in the championship and all the prize money that goes along with it. Lamborghinis haven't necessarily been the quickest on the season, but we'll have to wait and see if a short and twisty track like this will benefit them. As Maxime Brient, we're watching the 98 car, the sister Apex Racing car, across the line, or I should say down into pit road, and you'll notice they are indeed cutting that pit entry, the red and white curbing that you are being allowed by race control to take full advantage by. Their sister car down onto the lane as well. 3.5 minutes left to go then. The final qualifying duties for the drivers on track right now, and we mentioned heartbreak for the 23 car in their pink BMW. I mean, I was so disappointed to see what happened to them as they'll pull to the side of the track and try and let a number of cars go on through. And as Kovac says, get a move on, guys. I'll come around the outside there. Man, they were so impressive on our opener at Hockenheim. And then really, I mean, just disappointment for them. And, you know, contact with BS Competition, their first pole position of the season, it did not end the way they wanted.
It didn't last very long, unfortunately. First retirement from the race after that Turn 1 incident, and they'll be determined to come back and grab something from here. 8th place, not really what they would have wanted, but you know, not necessarily awful either. We'll have to see how they can work their way through the rest of this race. I mean, the first qualifying for to give hope to anyone. This is proof as to how different the races have been. Our Arnage competition last round out, of course, race 2. Pole position. First one though, the first qualifying session, they were only 13th. So it doesn't necessarily translate as Kova's on pole position here, they're definitely going to get pole front row of the grid for the next race. It's not how it works in this championship. It's been so open in that you know, obviously with the tight margins and such, you can never guarantee anything like that. One thing you kind of can guarantee though is that Mitchell de Jong is going to absolutely send this around the Nürburgring because he desperately wants to move up from 7th position, whilst their main championship rival, the 93, is going to be starting at the moment from the front row of the grid.
Might be their final lap time. Let's ride on board for a lap here at the Sprintstrecke down into the Haaghaken, named after former Mercedes team boss Norbert Haug, braking just before the 100 on the left-hand side, get all the way to the inside of the curve, almost clipping the bollard that sits right there, marking the cutoff point for where you'll get that incident through the Mercedes-Benz arena. This is off camber and very tricky to try and get the run down. Minimize the distance through the last part of the arena. You can see de Jong trying to hug the inside curb, but he gets a little bit loose. Now, use as much of the track as you can. You can see de Jong running all the way to the AstroTurf and down into the shortcut, braking at the 100 on the left-hand side. It's a little bit off camber at points. Up and down this corner goes, and through the shortcut you work yourself back to the Michelin curve, a corner that plenty of these drivers will be familiar with, but arriving with much less speed through Warsteiner. This is crucial to get your run down onto the back straightaway, and once more you can see de Jong mounts the curve on the outside, and now this is that momentum. This is what might be the primary passing opportunity that we see throughout today's action. Into the slower NGK chicane. Bounce your curb over the left on the curb on the left-hand side. Bounce yourself over the curb on the right-hand side as well. And De Jong has taken just a little bit too much curb. Makes his way back down onto pit road.
And that's it with 30 seconds left in the session. Done. Completed. Session over. 7th place. Josh Rogers is going to have to start from. That is not ideal. Maybe pushing a little bit too hard. And Dane Warren, who obviously had a good day in the Supercars E-Series a couple of days ago, now running around in 2nd position. That's a little bit too hot though, and we'll just dive back down to pit lane.
Kind of similar to what we saw from De Jong there, and you're right, it wasn't just a good day for him taking victory in the first.
As well.
Yeah, brother, family affair. Brother took 2nd, and we of course did talk to Dane last time around, and he said just a bit of sibling rivalry, not just because of course they're brothers, but of course as well because they're competing for teams that have a bit of rivalry when it goes to supercar competition. The checkered flag is out. Let's wait and see who is going to improve here in the closing stages of qualifying. Apex Racing Team, the 99 car, Zach Campbell up to 2nd position, dislodges Dane Warren from the front row of the grid. Kova in a train of cars with Jimmy Antunes and the Arnage competition car right behind, but all eyes focused on Martin Kroenke. Excuse me, that's not Martin Kroenke, that's the 2nd of the Coanda Mercedes. That's Pash Gergis. Across the line comes the Greek driver. Does he improve up the order? He does, but only to 15th. Kova do not improve. That will be Kova on pole position.
Good enough. I think that's what it was. It was good enough. Everyone else was throwing it at the circuit for the last moments, as we'd expect around the Nürburgring, that they do like to fire around. I mean, it's the circuit where you can attack the joy of this track, and you can fire it in, you can race hard. Final lap coming in from Vendeval that are down in 21st position. We'll see if they can improve in the Audi R8, and the lap time across the board. They've got to improve fair amount. They do improve on time, which is going to move them up a few places into 18th, and that'll be the last car in the qualifying. But front row moving up in the last moment. Zach Campbell, Apex Racing Team, Kova on pole.
For the penultimate time this season, let's turn up the most famous song of all of esports. Let's go ahead and take a look at our starting grid here in the Eifel Mountains. And so on pole, it is the Finnish drivers. Pole position for them last time from the Red Bull Ring. They backed that up here from the Nürburgring. A 1:24.892. Zach Campbell with a monster of a lap in the closing stages. He and Jamie Fluke will line up on the outside of row number 1 with Dane Warren, Martin Kroenke, and old VRS Coanda, row number 2. Tim Matske and Jack Sedgwick, Mercedes and Ferrari, share row 3 with Mitchell de Jong, the championship leader. Qualifying in 7th, Josh Rogers has lots of work to do. Jimmy Antunes will line up in 8th position for the Arnage competition with Maxime Briant, Tommy Osgaard on the edge of the top 10 for Apex and the Lego Technic Esports team. Pure Sims in their Audi lineup in 11th alongside Kieran Harrison, who was very impressive in race number 1 from the Red Bull Ring. Julian Sonnen has a pole position to his name dating back to Zolder. He'll line up in 13th alongside Bobo Dylan Shrivens in the Urano Esports Audi. Pash Gergis 15th alongside the 2nd of the Urano cars. Lewis Najder in the Urano Esports HKM machine. Corsim Racing Vendeval 17th and 18th positions. It was race victory for Felix Quirnbeck and Phil Denez last time from the Red Bull Ring. Lots of work for them to do back in 19th position, with Luca Kita rounding out the top 20 for Biela Racing Team. Energy Sim Sport, Core Sim Racing, the last 2 cars with qualifying lap times on the board. Just 6/10 separates our field here today. One car did not set a qualifying lap time. He had a qualifying ban. That was Daniel Lafuente in the Williams Esports Razor car. He's been a hard charger throughout the season. Lewis, you know what time it is. It's prediction time, but we said we weren't going to call the championship leaders, so you got to pick anyone else, and you got some options there on the front row.
I do have some options there on the front row. Now, I am terrified to curse Apex. Orco. I mean, Apex, especially after Monza. I'm going a little bit further back. I'm going a bit more left field. I guess not really that far. I think we're going to see a Mercedes on top. I think it's going to be still VRS Coanda, but I think it's going to be that 81.
we've only seen BMW and Porsches being on top in the races, so that's a bold call. I tell you what, I'm going to go with the 99 car, not just because I think Jamie Fluke and Zach Campbell need a win. I think that...
I want it.
I want it. I definitely want it. Here we go. The final race weekend for the VRS SCO Sprint Masters about to get underway. 2 hours and 2 title contenders are left here. And we enter the start zone. Antiohola will bring us to the green flag. It is a very, very long hold as we wait to say we go racing for the final time from the Eifel Mountains. Already, cars popping themselves out of line. Kova, though, will cover the inside line. The top 5 getting away. Line astern. Maniti looking for a move in their big green Mercedes. Inex in the middle of a 3-wide situation down into turn number 1. The field gets through safely. You can see one of your championship favorites just being very, very safe as Joshua Rogers navigates the first couple of corners through the arena section. The top 4 haven't changed positions. Only one issue. Daniel Ferguson in that Pure Sims Audi has gone around. We get through the arena section. All things safe.
Yeah, at the moment, or you can see the Arnage competition car being escorted off there a little bit, going on the attack, and Josh Rogers will dive it to the inside and try and pick up the spot. It is Kova leading from Apex from the 2 VRS SCO Simsport cars, 93 ahead of the 81 and Maniti. They were looking for a position down into turn 1 and just couldn't find it. Jarl Tyner's dropped a couple of positions in the Inex racing car, so he's down behind Josh Rogers now, and you can see their Arnage competition as well going on the attack.
Up into the very slow NGK chicane. That pink BMW pops himself to the inside, but nothing doing there. Apex and Lego Technic side by side as they almost make contact and through in towards the final quarter. Lap 1 in the books. Williams Esports Razor already up 8 positions. The phenomenal charge from Daniel Lafuente continues here in the SCO Sprint Masters Championship. Lap 1 in the books. It's Antiohola and Kova leading the way. Jamie Fluke and Apex down in second. VRS Coanda 3rd, 4th, and Maniti in 5th. Kevin Ellis Jr. looking very, very aggressive, though, as he looks to the inside of Tommy Osgard and that Lego Technica. Vendeval also up +6 on the day here so far.
Yeah, Dakota Fripp doing great work in that Audi. I was going to say Aston Martin, very much the wrong brand. Audi going on the attack, just getting involved with it. And whilst they're running side by side here, might well be able to pick up yet another position on the 92 as we exit the Mercedes arena section. Not so yet. And you can see, because of the very staunch defence from both the Lego Technic Porsche down into turn 1 and of course the Apex Racing number 98, it's creating a big gap between this group and the front of the field.
Yeah, that gap really is starting to balloon upwards as these guys enjoy a bit of a fight. You can see left side of the screen some very big movers. Daniel Lafuente once more has charged his way up through the field in that green Williams Esports Razor car. Next car in his sights, Luca Kita, who's also up +6 on the day so far. So really impressive as there comes the dive, but Kita covers him off, and through the NGK chicane, Kita gets a very poor run, opens the door for Lafuente to take a look into the final quarter. Nothing doing for now. You can see RAG and their Audi taking a dive down the inside of Daniel Pastor through the final corner. 3 minutes done, still 57 minutes left to go.
Yeah, Kutavillate having some issues here at the moment as we focus on him. Daniel Pastor ahead. David Williams, though, going on the attack. Back towards the front, though, as Apex Racing trying to make a move stick on Kova. Is there a move there? The answer to that question is no. But the beautiful thing with this opening sector is you can find a couple of different ways through, inside, outside. It all kind of works. A bit of contact as well between Josh Rogers and Arnage as he's going to open the door just a little bit and try and fight his way past the BMW as we go for the switch over, the shortcut between the two loops. That BMW is still on the inside. Door opened, door closed.
Don't want to be on the outside through the shortcut because it really does not give you a nice run, and it's very, very bumpy as you try and get through the corner. So Rogers tried to get a position done. Charlie Collins, of course, the championship rival, still tucked up in 3rd. Those cars now breaking away, 1.2 seconds between the 93 and the 81 car as they work themselves now onto that very slow chicane. Let's go ahead and turn our attention to our RaceSpotTV replay machine, which never misses anything. Let's first pick up what happens to Daniel Ferguson on the start. You can see the Pure Sims Audi in the thick of the action. Oh, that's contact with RAG. They get spat off the track. A subsequent issue for Maxime Ramstein. Let's take a look at what happened to him here.
Yeah, well, indeed, kind of see this one with Maxim Ramstein, who was victorious in both races yesterday. Just 3. Well, I mean, you were saying you don't want to be on the outside running into the shortcut. You don't want to be 3 wide on the outside into the shortcut, and that's exactly the position that the Course and Racing driver was left in, unfortunately. Just, to be honest, one of them things.
One of them things. I don't think the drivers necessarily think that, and you didn't mention Ramstein in action in the GT4s yesterday. Very, very strong. Let's wait and see if he can carry that forward maybe into race number 2. He's only 10 seconds off your leader, so hasn't lost as much time as he may have feared at one point. And the great thing about this layout is I think it just mixes things up. We mentioned that earlier, and it does mean that you maybe set your car up a little bit differently. I do wonder about that. Maybe focus a little bit more on your straight line performance. Gap starting to grow even further between 3rd and 4th positions. The peloton forming behind Jeremy Bouteloup.
Yeah, we do have ourselves a bit of a breakaway, and Charlie Collins is just sat there. At the moment, Charlie Collins needs to race this as if it's for his championship, because weirdly enough it is for his championship. Him and Dane Morin, at the moment, what I mean by that is don't take any risk. At the moment, you've got a gap behind that's big and building. The 2 cars ahead of you, yes, whilst they're for points, more points that would help. I get it, and you know, maybe attack them a bit later on in the race, but focus on building a gap to all of the cars behind, i.e. don't attack Jamie Fluke, don't attack the Cobra car that's leading the way of Antti Ahola. Just hold position right now, let things unfold the way they're going to unfold, and try and build out that gap even further, because the 91's stuck in traffic right now. It's not making progress, and by the time it gets behind you to being that next car, and I'm a bit of a bold gamble, but I'd say that Josh Rogers and that 91 will eventually get their way up to 4th position in this race, and we'll be able to maybe try and hunt this down in the very, very later stages of this race. But right now, you can make that gap so big that it's actually an impossible target to hit by making that gap so large.
The one thing I think we know for sure, though, there will be no team orders being played here. If Josh Rogers gets on the back of Jeremy Bouteloup, I have a very hard time believing that he's going to get the go on through message. It's going to be all the way down to the wire, and ultimately, if you're Charlie Collins, you'll know, and you'll be updated as to the status of that 91 car by your teammate, and always just keeping an eye on that championship picture. Not really breaking away, though. Bouteloup has started to improve his pace very slightly. You said a Mercedes might come out on top. Mercedes battle for 4th and 5th position, and it's great to see Ruben Bonga back in action today. Those Bonga drums well and truly on display.
Yeah, Maniti Racing had a good day, speaking of yesterday, in the GT4s, taking a podium. They've been learning the GT4s bit by bit, and they did grab themselves a podium in the final race of the season in fantastic fashion. And in fact, they were challenging for the race win. Not sure they'll be doing that today, but at the moment, they do have to challenge for 5th position, as Ricardo Rico was trying to make a move, and that's just created a bit of a gap between Bonga and Bouteloup. And once again, Rico back to the inside, a little bit of contact, and if there's one thing you can't do, it's bully about that big old Mercedes. And coming through, of course it is, Josh Rogers picking up the pieces.
Rogers says, thank you very much. I'll take 6th spot away from you. Ricardo Rico potentially now some damage to that right side. Great to see the elbows coming out. All these drivers know one final race to show what they are worth. Here in the SCO Sprint Masters, we will go racing in the SCO Endurance Series later this winter. Schedule still TBD, or TBC I should be saying, because of course we do know at RaceSpot what the likely schedule is going to be. Some very interesting tracks up on the horizon as we go racing for endurance style once more. Jaltian back behind the wheel of that Ferrari, now sending it through the chicane. Haven't seen a slowdown penalty between any of the cars so far. Do not think that's how.
To say it.
We're not going to wait. We're not going to expect to see that stay as it is for at least the time being. But I would say right now that gap that I had mentioned just a bit ago wasn't opening up, has started to open up, and have we just seen our first slowdown penalty?
Yeah, I mean, I will say with I think there's been a couple of issues for the R8 GUs. Just been struggling with their own connection. There is definitely one for Vendeval, though, as they're going to drop back behind Williams and, of course, the Urano Esports Lamborghini, and they're going to remain side by side off of T1. And at the moment, Daniel Passer just trying to get back through on Dakota Fripp, and going to remain side by side through the Mercedes Arena section. Should be realistically advantage Audi on the exit here. We'll have the inside line through the final part of the Mercedes Arena section, and the inside line through the shortcut, but no, the outside line works in favour of the Lamborghini. And away clear. I will say, by the way, with I'm not sure why Yaltime missed the previous round. I don't think it's because of this, but I did find out recently he got married quite recently. I'm not sure if it was last week, because I'm pretty sure it was a little bit. He kept that one very much under the radar, the sneaky boy.
Well, congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Tyne. I would say, not sure how his sim racing career is going to go from now forward, because priorities, let's be honest, Lewis.
Yeah, you can't be like, oh no, we're not going to go out for dinner now. I'm racing. What? Excuse me. Yeah, no, I would. Yeah, no, it's not a downward trend, but you can get yourself in trouble. We'll go with that. 2 seconds now. The gap between Collins and Bootleaf is going out bit by bit. It was about a second and a half a couple of laps ago. Now building even further as the top 3 are just trying to build their way a gap, and also fantastically so. It's BMW versus Lamborghini versus Porsche, and behind all of that, we've got the 2 Mercs. Got another Porsche, got a BMW as well, got Ferraris, Lamborghinis. Proof that where we have things at the moment in the championship, whilst, yes, Porsche's battling out for the championship, but when it comes to a race by race sort of, if you look at it per race, it is wide open now.
Oh, very much so, and I would say only manufacturer not being represented in the top 10 even right now is the Audi, and the Audi is very much the least BOP. They've had the least weight being put onto their car, and I think just an indication of how impressive the balance of performance that the SCO guys have been doing over the course of this season. The Porsche, the most bopped car, as it were. But I think more just by virtue of the 91 and the 93 being so strong, so dominant over the course of our 5 previous races. It'll be interesting to see if the form book holds up, and if, as we head into potentially a future season of this SCO Sprint Masters, if we'll see that continue. It is nice not to have a single make manufacturer cup class, as it were, because for so long, special events here on the iRacing service have been cup classes. I mean, Audis, for example, have been so dominant at times. It's great that we see these Mercedes side by side, almost as, oh, Bonga almost gets that a little bit wrong and runs himself into the back of Bootaloo, just about holds on. Joshua Rogers is taking a look, though.
Yeah, Rogers is sat there waiting for his right moment to pounce. It's a hard track to overtake at, though, looking to the inside of Bonga. No way through as we ride on board with Josh Rogers. It's just like I say, there will be an opportunity, and he knows this. He's got the experience of sim racing. I mean, we know exactly the level of talent that Josh Rogers has, and he will just wait for that right opportunity. Won't go for anything too dramatic. They'll be calm at the moment, I think. Like, no need to panic as Lafuente picks up another position. This one on Luca Keita, who's also made up a fair amount of progress. Does look a little bit flustered, which, I mean, by a little bit flustered, I mean, I can tell it might be a little bit light. Let's be honest with Josh, we don't ever see him really get animated or anything. It's always very calm, it's always very relaxed, always very much a part of the race in a calm style, not ever, effing and jeffing and being a little bit panicked and all that. Does look a little bit, less calm than normal, but I wouldn't say this is an alarm bell yet.
I would say the one thing that probably concerns him a little bit is the fact that gap just keeps growing and growing between 3rd and 4th positions. As look at this, almost 3 wide as they exit the final quarter. Vendeval ducking to the inside. The charge from Lafuente, 9 positions gained to where he sits right now. But right behind him, Vendeval having to cover off David Williams very, very aggressively. They enter the corner 3 wide. They won't exit. Luca Keita gets a little bit of a shove. He holds on to the car. Phil Dinez has a wonderful view of the action. Keita back down the inside. He covers off for 15th spot.
Yeah, superb stuff, and Phil Dinez is going to pick up something from this, I'm absolutely sure. Not sure which car it'll be, though, as Keita's going to hang on from Williams, riding on board with Phil Dinez. Out of the corner, you can see the drive is much, much better, but the Mercedes going to defend down into the shortcut and should be able to hang on to position, because the outside line through that section just doesn't really work. You've got to keep your eye on the 2 core cars as well behind, as well as that Pure Sims Audi that's right involved in the mix. I mean, this is the way this kind of stuff is. If you get passed by one, you're probably not just getting passed by one, you might well get yourself a freight train around a circuit like this. How close it is, how tight it always is. We do get these trains, and it does make things very, very difficult to pass. Someone who's not had much difficulty with passing, though, is definitely Lafuente, who's made up position after position. Every couple of laps seems to be attacking someone else. Next one up is Daniel Pazda in the number 90 Urano eSports car.
Meanwhile, out front, the trio continues to just stretch their legs. Now, 2.5 seconds between Collins and Bouteloup, about 3.5 seconds between your race leader and that Mercedes of the 81 car. I tell you what, Jamie Fluke is potentially just setting up for his teammate Zach Campbell to go really, really aggressive as Kevin Ellis Jr., Jarl Tien, they are scrapping it out for 8th position right now. Tien just about holds on, but Kevin Ellis Jr. recently qualified for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship, finished 2nd in the overall standings. For a driver with no Rallycross experience before the IRX All-Star Invitational presented by Yokohama early in 2021, he's had some good teachers at the end of the day, Lewis. I mean, what better teacher could you have than the reigning defending world champion Johan Harth and the driver that finished in 2nd, John Robertson?
Yeah, exactly. Can I just say one thing as well? We have had a retirement from the race. I've only just received a message from Bobo about it, and that one being, I was wondering where, because I was looking at the Urano eSports and I'm pretty sure there's one missing, and it is the Huawei car that is a retirement from the race. I don't know if they'll be able to jump in, obviously way down, but at least to score a couple of points. I don't really know what they'll do in that front. But there's a power cut on the grid.
Oh, that's a shame, and I think we've just had a bit of a tangle between... Oh, that's Coanda Mercedes spinning itself around through the NGK chicane. Let's go to our RaceSpotTV replay machine because it misses nothing, and I'm sure it's caught what's happened here. Right up behind Luke Akita to drive... Oh, and it's going to be an aggressive dive to the inside from Williams. Is he going to mount the inside curb? Yes, not necessarily thinking that's too much of contact with the Biela car. Maxime Ramsay says, hello, David Williams.
Yeah, I mean, the first, there's a little bit of one. There's a little bit more. There's a bit more. I mean, to be fair, I'm normally quite critical of the if there's an incident happening and then there's contact made. However, I will say with Maxime Ramsay, especially when you're on board with him, that is trying to avoid it. But obviously, where even coming through the chicane, you're still on the brakes as you're still scrubbing off the speed. Naturally, with the chicane, you're always scrubbing it off through there. And at that point, probably a little bit unsighted as it was all kind of happening. Maybe trying to go a little bit side by side, just as you were already side by side before they started spinning and trying to get back in line. Little bit clumsy, but I wouldn't be too harsh on that one.
And Charlie Collins losing the tail end very slightly here. Not, I think, going to be too much of a worry, but in a point system that very much gives advantage to those that take victory. Have to wait and see how aggressive Charlie Collins is going to be. Jamie Fluke doesn't look like he's pushing the issue, at least for the time being. A truly train behind Jeremy Bouteloup. Bonga, those bonga drums not really helping his cause. Does Ricardo Rico look to the inside of Rogers? He thought about it, but doesn't try and make anything happen. Rogers is the one going on the offensive. Looks to the inside of the big green machine. Nothing doing for now, but like Lewis mentioned, you can run so many different lines through this Mercedes-Benz arena. Rogers looks to the inside. Bonga cuts him off.
The problem that Rogers has is that, again, as always is the case when you're the meat of the sandwich, you have to be careful with when you attack, because if you attack too aggressively, if you attack at the wrong time, you're a sitting duck for the car directly behind, and that's exactly what Rogers needs to be really, really careful. At the moment, it's looking like the recovery drive is basically fourth is as good as it's going to get, because the top three have just pulled away so far already. You know, they're still 3.5-4 seconds down the road, and realistically speaking, then fourth is potentially as good as the 91 can get, which is not what they would have wanted. Does mean though that we're going to have a very interesting final race of the season. We'll do our best to bring some points numbers to the old occasion, because it's going to be a tight fight. There goes Rogers back to the inside, not quite there enough, and again covered off. He's getting aggressive. I kind of get the feeling that Rogers is trying to pull Bonga off of the rear end of Jeremy Bouteloup so that then he can attack him without so much slipstream.
But watch out for that grunt of the BMW. We're racing at elevation, not as elevated as the Red Bull Ring. To the inside comes that Arnage competition. BMW shoves Rogers wide. Rogers will continue on the inside, but side by side, this is where the championship fight gets a little bit risky. Some more contact between the two of them. They're playing bumper cars. Rico still holding strong. He'll have the inside for the next portion of the corner. And where we saw the BMW getting past last time around, the BMW regains the position.
Yeah, and should be able to hold it because it's got the inside line running through the shortcut, and once again, got to be careful to get back in line. You've got the Ferrari of Inex. There was a little bit of contact. Arnage competition have gone off. Inex are also coming through. Yaltime also going to try and make this one stick around the outside. We'll have the inside onto the back straight away. And that, I'm pretty sure, might even potentially be a bit of a slap on the wrist for Josh Rogers, which in a post-race conduct, this could be very provisional now. This has become very, very interesting. Rogers is looking pretty flustered, at least from the on-track action right now.
I have to wonder what is going through Rogers' mind as now he sets up the move on Yaltime, who makes a little bit of a mistake through the chicane, and Rogers takes 6th position back away. These cars now about 2 and a bit seconds away from the cars in front. Slowdown penalty, I think, for Rogers. He's pulling to the side of the track. He might drop all the way to 9th position.
Now this is what happened to SimRC yesterday. They were in the championship fight, and Lucas de Vries in the second race just had a couple of slowdown penalties at the wrong time. There's going to be a little bit of contact as well on that run through T1 between Apex and Inex as going on the attack. The 98 back to the inside of Inex as they're still going to run through side by side. It's going to be tight. Obviously, Kevin Ellis Jr. is not going to try and give up that position at all. Wants to gain it completely on the Ferrari. It was a little bit slow through the chicane and through the final corner, and now has gained the position in the Lamborghini. And look at the Lego Technic car coming through the middle of all of it.
Oh, Rico sends it down the inside. Bit of contact with Yaltime, just forces him wide. More contact. There's rallycross action. And well, we're talking about slaps on the wrist. I think Arnage competition will get a slap on the wrist for that one.
Yeah, that was a little bit dangerous, a little bit dicey. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure what happened between Arnage competition and Ricardo Rico and Josh Rogers on the previous lap. It was super tight. We'll get another little look at it. I think it might be a little bit of a bump. There was a little bit, but nothing too major from Rogers. Then they run side by side through the exit of the Mercedes arena, and Josh Rogers gets off of the road, basically in avoidance just to sort of carry the speed out there, because he was always going to be pushed off there by Ricardo Rico. But it's this bit here, and I get the feeling that Rogers unloads Rico at just the wrong time, and Tyan comes through right about there. It's nothing major though. It really is the lightest contact, but contact is contact, and might well be enough for the race stewards to step in. If anything, it'll be like a 5-second time penalty or something though, so I'm sure Rogers will have that in his mind. And if that was the case, well, I'll just pull out from 5 seconds from the car behind. Done.
Well,
fixed.
I'll be honest, I don't think that one is necessarily an incident. This one... Oh, that's a little bit harder to judge. Was it oh, you could see a bit of a tank slapper for the Arnage competition BMW to handle as well. But I would say the second one looks a little bit naughtier than the first one, at least from that perspective, as Inex trying to bounce back, and oh, that's aggressive down the inside. They tried it on Dakota Fripp in that Vendaval Audi. Nothing doing. We are almost, Lewis, into the crucial pit stop window. Let's see who dives down earliest this time around.
Yeah, exactly, and I get the feeling that as much as it depends on what kind of space and air Josh Rogers has ahead of him, but may well come down into pit lane in the earliest opportunity just to get out of the battle pack. I don't think the 93 is coming down anytime soon. They're exactly where they want to be. They're sat on the podium battle. Yes, they're a little bit off, but I also think that is potentially intentional, just to sit off the rear end of the top two, so in case they fight, if they have an incident or whatever, you're not involved in it. You're racing in the safest position possible. You're in third, you're away from everyone else, you've got your own little bit of space, and you can attack the race as you see fit. Maybe in the second half you can go on it, but right now, no need to.
Jamie Fluke keeping that gap well and truly under control as we look rearwards from the Kova Esports machine. Victorious in our opening race on the season when Antti Ahola unfortunately was missing in action. Pekka Toivonen, the reserve driver, doing a very impressive job to steer the 7 car into victory lane. It's been a bit more difficult since then. We saw speeding penalties in Barcelona kind of drop them out of title contention, and then I forget if it was Zolder or Monza, Lewis, that we saw this car have an absolute nightmare. That dropped them completely out of title contention.
I think there's a bit of both. Either way, we are 60 seconds away from the pit window opening and coming down for that central 10 minutes of the race, and the fantastic pit lane sequence that we see in this championship, switching of drivers, potentially a little bit of strategy as well, but we get to see the other drivers, those that did qualifying, will jump in for their race ending. It'll be the last time they're doing all of this. It's the last race start they're doing. It'll be the last race ending that the other drivers will be doing in this championship. VRS SCO and SimSport, that is Josh Rogers getting past the Lego Technicar that Tommy Usgaard is driving. That was down in the final corner. I wonder if the Lego Technicar is going to go on the attack. Whilst there may not be team orders, it may well be a bit of, I'm not getting involved in your championship fight, mate. And to be fair, if I was in a team with other teammates that were battling for the championship, fastest lap for Josh Rogers, I would not be getting involved in their title fight. No interest. I'm like, look, you two battle it out amongst yourselves.
It is great to have two Coanda cars. We said no team orders, but like you said, maybe the team order is don't make contact. Was it the 91 and the 92 we saw making contact at Hockenheim? I believe it was. The pit window is open. The clock is ticking. 10 minutes for teams to come down and get their one and only pit stop, driver change, and likely 4 fresh Pirelli tires as well. Gap out front between 3rd and 4th position is ballooned up to almost 5 full seconds. Jeremy Bouteloup still has Ruben Bonga in his rearview mirrors, but of course with all the action that we've been seeing, Kevin Ellis Jr. has worked his way up into 6th, about 2 seconds adrift from Bonga in front. Josh Rogers has 1.7 seconds to close to the Apex Racing car in front of him. Does anyone come into the pits this time around? You would have to be a very bold person. Ruben Bonga blinks, as does Joshua Rogers.
Yeah, I mean, Rogers blinking. It's not. I mean, to be fair, actually, Rogers was in clean air, so I'm actually almost a little bit surprised by it. But if they were in that train, there's no surprise. For Bonga, I'm not also that shocked. Smart to go into pit lane to try and jump the 81 as well. Busy in pit lane. First call of asking, and it's very, very busy. You've got, of course, Ruben Bonga. You've got Josh Rogers. You've got Yoltine. You've got Phil Denez as well as the core car. You've also, good shout, you've got the 93 Charlie Collins already out. Dane Warren into the car.
That is early. They are trying an undercut, and they will have some clean air here, so potentially will work out in their advantage. Very, very surprised to see this early call from the 93 car. We'll have to wait and see if it plays out the way they're expecting. Off the jacks and rolling is Dane Warren. Clean air, and now he's got to set the afterburners to full maximum attack. This, though, is Antihola and Jamie Fluke. They're working themselves up to the chicane. Do either of these guys respond to the 93 car?
I kind of think they've got to be honest, although I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if I would or not. We'll see what happens. Kova, of course, Kova's not. Why would they? Kova don't care about Coanda. Like every time they go race, it's like, no, we're just gonna do our own thing. Don't care. Moi. they just like to do their own strategy. It's a bit hard for them to do their own thing when they've got a Lamborghini yelling behind them, but at the same time they just like to go out and just race themselves. The 81 into pit lane to go and cover off the Lego Technicar. So already 2 minutes into the pit lane sequence, and all of the Coanda cars have been into pit lane.
Haven't really talked about it, but we should probably just take a little bit of a gander at the track conditions. 18 degrees in the air, 28 on the track itself, so not necessarily the warmest. There are some gusts of winds, but in these heavy GT3 machines, I don't necessarily think that's going to be too much of a consideration. Be very curious, Lewis, to talk to these drivers post-race and just hear what the tyre wear has been like for them.
It's not necessarily the hardest track when it comes to tyre wear. There is a lot of sort of medium to slow speed corners, but being not a very long track, it's not the largest tyre. It's not the lowest either. It's sort of just very medium. But it's something that the drivers can actually do something about. There are some tracks that you go to where, especially with the heat and stuff, there's nothing that you can do in a sense. You know, obviously there is always something that you can do a little bit, but for the most part, there's not really much you can do when it comes to your tyre wearers. Here we go with Maniti and VRS SCO and SimSport going for the move completely. Tim Matska to the inside after jumping in for Ruben Bonga. They're going to be side by side. Maniti have been out for a couple of laps. The VRS SCO and SimSport has just been in and out of pit lane. It's so tight out of the Mercedes Arena section. It's going to be advantage Maniti.
But inside line, give it to Martin Kroenke, a multiple-time world champion when it comes to open-wheel racing. Oh, Matske tries to cover off the move, forces Kroenke to bounce himself over the inside curb. Kroenke holds on, but this battle is by no means done and dusted. Biela Racing Team, the latest car down onto pit road. Would not be surprised if the rest of the top 9 elect to just try and extend this all the way to the end. You can see the 93 car has really cleared on off. He's now 6.3 seconds clear of Kronka and Matska behind. We'll have to wait and see what the lap times are going to be for the 93, I should say, in comparison to the 2 race leaders.
Yeah, that's literally what I was about to be asking. Obviously, fresh behind the wheel is Dane Warren, and out of the final corner, Kova's last lap time was plenty fast enough, of course, but it being a 26.0, which plays a 26.1 from Dane Warren, so a little bit slower, but not by much.
Do they come down this time around? Halfway through the pit stop window. Jamie Fluke tucked up behind the Kova Esports car. No, none of these guys come on down. Bit surprised to not see at least some sort of a response as further back. I think PS Competition and Jack Cedric embroiled in a bit of a fight. Disappointment, I'm sure, for Inex. Now some damage to the left front of their Ferrari 488 GT3 machine. The Zebra trying to bounce back after a disappointing qualifying performance. Phil Denez unable to really do too much early on as Sim Racing and Vendaval, the next 2 cars to blink and come down on towards pit road. The charge from Daniel Lafuente, by the way, has got him into the top 5, albeit momentarily. He really enjoys these race starts, Lewis, and there's something to be said about drivers that relish the chance of taking a car to the green flag.
You only see big moves, like big position points in standing start races, because obviously it's that run down to turn 1 where you see the big position switches. You know, you get 4 or 5 before you've even hit the first corner, and everyone's scrambling for grip because you're attacking a corner at a different speed than normal. Pick up another couple, then you see those big gains. Lafuente's found a way of doing that on a rolling start as well. Reaction times absolutely superb from the Williams Esports Razor garage, and like you say, just clearly Lafuente knows how to start a race, and gaining so many positions in the very early stages. 81 losing out here a little bit and battling it out. 81 must have had a slowdown penalty because it was a little bit ahead of all this, battling with an ET car, and now they've lost out to Lego Technic. Must have been a slowdown penalty of some description.
What did I say, Lewis?
Yep.
I said it. I guess the commentator's curse is in full effect. We'll just have to wait and see if Apex Racing Team are unfortunate victims of that one, at least when it comes to me. Doesn't look like a Mercedes is on course for victory here, so neither of us looking pretty strong. 3 minutes left to go in the pit stop window. The 2 leaders still out front and still building an advantage over Dane Warren. Lap time last time around for Warren was a 26.018, so he has responded slightly faster than these 2 cars, but we'll have to wait and see how close is it out of pit exit.
I think, though, they'll be going until the very last lap of this sequence, which isn't this lap they're currently on, it is the one after. That'll be the final lap they can complete inside the pit window. So they're just going to keep driving around, I think. They're just going to keep, again, just doing their own thing. They're at this point, of course, the number 99 of Jamie Fluke has no real intention, I feel, of attacking the Kova car, whilst, again, everything is, because the moment that he does attack them, the 93 take the lead of the race. It's done in that sense. So just follow Kova, who you know are a known quantity in this kind of series. They're a quality team. They've won a race already this season. And diving into pit lane, trying to go for the undercut is Jamie Fluke. Zach Campbell with the work to do.
You have to do something. Now let's wait and see where Jamie Fluke and Zach Campbell will come out in comparison to Dane Warren, who is working himself in towards the Kurzan Bindung. I hope I pronounced that one right. The corner names here are a little bit tough, not as tough as we've seen on occasion. The 98 car to the sister Apex team still out there on track. Leaves 5 cars still yet to come down onto pit road. They will have one final opportunity. The clock continues to tick. The 91 car only 2 positions behind the 93 right now, so the championship fight is going to come all the way down to the wire in race number 2, unless Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong come unstuck and Dane Warren, Charlie Collins make their way into victory lane. Warren through the final corner as Zach Campbell getting behind the wheel of the 99 car. Through the final corner, Warren gets on the power. Where is Zach Campbell in comparison right now? Campbell is rolling himself off of pit road. I don't know how close they're going to be. Campbell has released himself off the limiter, and Warren sweeps around the outside. He should get that position done. Now, can Antiohola respond on this incoming lap?
There we go, boom from the 93, perfect response from Dane Warren, and considering the gap between the 99 and the 7 was such a small one, I mean, this won't really help. Going very, very slow was Dane Warren there, and just trying to hold off the number 99 and the advances of Zach Campbell, but that is not conducive to good lap times, and this will gift the 7 a fairly comfortable lead if they continue to fight out this much. Getting to the inside, Zach Campbell potentially not really a corner going through that shortcut that you can get to the inside on properly. It's just such a tight run through there, and cars tend to drift out and then come back for the final part. Either way, didn't miss the box. Antti Ahola in the pit lane.
Ahola steps out, Tuomas Tatula behind the wheel. Pit window comes to a close, so every car is now down onto the lane. The brake rotors glow on the 93 car. How much does this fighting cost both of these competitors? Zach Campbell, Jamie Fluke so close to victory from the Temple of Speed. They are still looking like a potential traveler to the victory lane. Across the line, Tuomas Tatula has released himself already. He makes his way down. It's not going to be close enough for Dane Warren, but he will be on the attack as Tuomas Tatula gets those tires up to temperature.
Yeah, it might take them a couple of laps just to get up to speed, and we'll see if VRS SCO can attack them. They need to get that gap back down very much with under a second. It's currently around about the 9/10 margin. It needs to come down much, much more than that if they're going to basically satisfy Apex and satisfy themselves and give themselves a good chance to go for the race lead eventually throughout this race. But again, it depends on how much they're willing to fight for at the moment. They're sat in second, could be third. 91's not really having a great race right now, but of course we know with this championship how much it switches around. Using BS competition as an example here, they are not having a good round at BS competition. Their pace doesn't really look there. They're not where we would expect them to be, and yet I'm still sat here thinking they could contend for a podium next race. And it's just because that's just how it is. We know what BS competition is like. They do much, much better in the second race, with exception of Austria when they won the first race. They always do better in the second races.
Ooh.
That's a little bit much from Dane Warren, and Zach Campbell is very, very close.
That also has ballooned the gap up front to 1.5 seconds, so lots of work for Dane Warren, Zach Campbell to do if they want to put the pressure back onto that BMW. Here comes the run down the main straightaway, side by side across the start-finish line. Zach Campbell looks to get the move done on Dane Warren. I don't think they're going to fight this one too hard with the VRS Coanda car. They know points are more crucial than second position. Campbell gets on through in his final race after 2.5 years for the Apex Racing team. He's searching for victory.
Yeah, and the thing is with this right now, with Zach Campbell, is that if you're Dane Warren, letting him through right now is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Campbell's very, very fast right now. We've seen that a couple of times around the circuit already today, and with the decent qualifying, jumped up into second position in the final moments. Might well be their best chance to go and attack Tatula and try and close that gap down, and then maybe get something a bit later on. If not, you can attack them in sort of 15-20 minutes time. You've got plenty of time to the car behind. So it's about attacking at the right point of the race, and right now is not the right point. Wait for it to unfold.
So the top 5, Kova, Apex Racing, Coanda, Maniti, and Apex. 2 of those Lamborghinis in the top 5. I'm sure Alex Simpson is going to be watching on with delight. Then you have your championship leaders, Mitchell de Jong, Josh Rogers. They're sitting in 6th, just in front of Hypermac Backham for the LEGO Technic Esports Team Arnage competition in their pink BMW, along with Coanda and Core to round out the top 10. Is Zach Campbell having some small technical issues right now?
Did seem like it. Speak of someone with issues, Mac Backham, slow down penalty potentially. I think the answer to that question is yes. And well, look who's knocking at the door of the scene. Whilst no, it's not Lafuente, because they've switched out and Kalpanen's got back behind the wheel of the number 5 Williams esports car. But it's in 12th position. It's right on the rear end of 11th, and it's in this train that goes all the way up to 6th. Fantastic stuff from Williams, as once again their charge forward just beggars belief, to be honest. As we'll keep our eye on board with Kalpanen right now. And next one up, as I said, will be Mac Backham. And again, this is the example. Do not cut that final chicane. Just don't do it. And we've seen that really cause issues for quite a few cars so far today, not least of all being that number 91.
just a few. And I will say one of the best man buns I've seen in all of sim racing, Ate Kauppinen really rocking that look. Would be interested. We have to go and take a look at Maxime Brient, I think, at some point in today's action, because we've seen him grooving through the action. I'm sure he'll be pretty happy as he attacks now that big green machine. We run down this back straightaway through the Advan curve. Question if it's actually a corner, but I guess that's a debate for another time. We don't need to get into that one too much. Of course, we renamed and renumbered some of those corners at the Red Bull Ring, and if we're going on renames, of course, I do have to mention and shout out VCO as we did the 6 hours, the race against the flood here. Yeah. This is not the Nürburgring anymore. It's the 3/4 George Simmons ring. We're working our way across the start-finish line, not into the Haughaken. Instead, we're working our way into the Maladrome. So many fun, different things. I even got a corner named after myself, Lewis.
Did you? Which one?
I believe it's, what was it? Turn 7? Just before Dunlop, or is that just after Dunlop?
The one after Dunlop's the Schumacher S, which, I mean, if you're getting renamed to the Schumacher S, oof. The one before, I think these, it's Ford or Valvoline. I can never remember which one.
I think Ford. I think Ford is the one we renamed.
There you go. There you go. Well done to you.
I know. I'm very proud of that one. Going to go up on
the
my
second best racetrack on the planet.
Whoa! What's better than the Nürburgring?
You know what I'm going to say here. Bathurst.
I know. I just needed to get you to say that out loud. I would argue that yes, Bathurst is better than the Nürburgring. However, the Nordschleife beats all.
Oh, yeah, okay, no, fair enough. But no.
I know you're not a fan. I know you're not a fan of the Nordschleife.
It's not that I'm not a fan of the Nordschleife. I'm fine with the Nordschleife. I'm terrified of it. I'm fine with it though. But for me, I think Bathurst is just it. Between the walls, over the crests, down the hill. Oh. You're
telling me you don't like to not know what corner's coming up next?
Well, I don't like a track where I need a rally driver, a co-driver to tell me what's coming up, whether it's a 3 right or a hairpin left or something.
I
do know my way around the Nordschleife, don't worry. But
well, didn't you say I was watching yesterday. Didn't you say you've only done one race around the Nordschleife and it ended in tears?
No, I've got a trophy.
Oh, no, sorry, you're right. I completely forgot.
Yeah, no, I got a trophy with the Nordschleife logo. It's in the corner of my room, but. No, it's the only time that I've gone racing around the Nordschleife properly. I've driven it a couple of times. I raced it in some Skip Barbers when they were there on the just as an iRacing, just an official series. Bad idea. Don't do that. It's good fun though. It's terrifying, but it's a great track. It's Bathurst.
Just not for you, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
and you'd be wrong. Anyway, we just got to have some fun. I'm very sad that we're coming to a close here of what has been an incredible action of incredible summer of GT3 action. It really has been nice to get, as a new influx of GT3 machines has come to the iRacing service, to get a proper championship with some proper prize money on the line and some of the best drivers in all of the world. I mean, you've got the likes of Rogers and de Jong teaming up with one another. You've got then the Kova guys out front looking comfortable, 1.6 seconds clear of Zach Campbell and Dane Warren. Warren has dropped off the back, in fact, of Zach Campbell very slightly, and as we were watching one core sim racing car, the other core sim racing car I think was on the move. This is Corentin Gunes, who's just gotten past Ross McFarlane.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, this is the whole thing of you can make progress around the circuit. You can make some overtakes around this track. I mean, let's mention, you only need to go and ask Williams Esports about making some progress around this track. We are in the final sort of 17 minutes of this race, though, and you can see gaps are already forming. Zach Campbell's been closing down a little bit on Thomas Tattler at the head of the field, has been pulling away quite a bit from Dane Warren, which for the 93, I mean, it could have been a little bit better, but this is not that bad in the sense that, again, you're third, you're scoring some decent points, and whilst it does seem like Mitchell de Jong isn't going to get anything more than the 6th place, because Maxime Brient that's ahead by 2 seconds, and that 2-second gap has remained at a 2-second gap basically for the entirety of this stint. Now, should anything happen between Brient and Matska, then of course it opens the door and the points will be very interesting. I'm absolutely sure of it, but right now de Jong's not in the greatest spot. What is it for 6th place? Is it 10 points or 11? It's 10, isn't it?
That's exactly what I was going to go and check. And of course, we have to put the proviso, Lewis. don't trust the commentators' math. Never trust the commentators' math.
Never.
Third place gets you 16 points. Sixth would get you 10. So yeah, it would be a 3-point swing this time to the 93 car heading into the final race of the season. I tell you what, form book on the line right now. Dane Warren, Charlie Collins, they're looking pretty good for race number 2 as all things stands. I would be feeling pretty confident amongst those two guys. Has there been an issue for Jack Sedgwick, or is that just a slowdown penalty? He's now dropped down all the way to 19th position.
Might well be a slowdown. Although to be fair, if you get a slowdown from the final chicane, then you tend to serve it a little bit earlier than down into turn 1. But realistically speaking, considering the car looks absolutely fine, I'd suggest it's probably the only thing it could be is that of a slowdown penalty. So whilst we've seen plenty of them today, we've definitely not seen the last of them today. We will see plenty more throughout. Not only, I'm sure a couple of people are awaiting one in this race, and then we'll see plenty over the next race. And that's how quick your championship can go. Say, for example, for Dane Warren, who will be starting the next race. Let's just say, for example, lap 1, you're coming down to that final chicane. You've got a bit of pressure on, right, from behind. You've got a train behind you. And then you cut on lap 1, the worst time to get a slowdown penalty, you drop to the back of that train. That is painful.
And slowdowns are always worse on lap number 1 as well, so
yeah,
there is very much an incentive to keep it clean as Oskari Rene looks to the inside of Martin Kroenke in that VRS Mercedes. Can he get the move done? No, Kroenke holds on firmly. Does it open the door to Lewis Nasner in the Urano Lamborghini behind? Not for now, but Rene gets very, very squirrely and then has to cover off the move from that Lamborghini. Opens the door for Hypermac Backham to try and make something happen.
Again, that Lego Technic car's had flashes of greatness this season. It's not necessarily nailed to the level that they would have wanted. It's had some fantastic races. I mean, remembering back to Barcelona, they had some good ones. Got involved in a little bit of a tussle, must be said. But they had some great races. This season, though, I'd say for them, I think disappointing is a harsh word to put with it. But it's just not been the season they would have expected nor wanted. But you know, it is what it is. You take these on such a competitive grid. I mean, you think of it this way: if you miss out on 2 tenths in qualifying, that's the difference between starting from pole position or starting from 13th, 14th position. It's that tight. This is looking a little bit better from Mac Backham, though, all over the rear end of Nasser. Around the outside of the final corner doesn't work, but he was trying to hook back to that final apex and get a nice straight exit onto the start-finish straight and maybe wake something stick down into T1. But, of course, the Lamborghini can see that one coming. Covers back off to the right-hand side, and that Lamborghini is faster in a straight line than the Porsche, it seems. See what the attack's like, though, and there is the move back to the inside. Mac Backham making it stick. Oh, so tight. I think there was a little bit of a brush between them.
It's an interesting place to make a dive happen because with the rear-end nature of that 911, as you get to the compression on the inside of turn 1, I have a feeling that sent Backham a little bit sideways, and that allowed Nasr to hold on. Now Kauppinen has his eyes set forward. Can a top 10 be on the cards after starting at the tail end of the field? Do not count out that Williams Esports Razor Machine once more. They've been on a charge with 12 minutes left to go. These cars in a train behind 8th position, Martin Kroenke. Out front, by the way, Lewis, not sure if you were keeping your eyes on it. Gap has come down ever so slightly between Tumas Tatula and Zach Campbell, but Dane Warren has started to lose track of the young Georgian in front.
It's just not coming down enough, though. That's the problem. It's coming down bit by bit, but realistically, it's only like a 10th here or a 10th there, which isn't. It's not only not good enough to actually close in by the end of the race, it's just slightly shy of that. But it's also not good enough to get there and to make a move. That said, all you are doing is you are keeping the most constant pressure on Kova. And whilst they're not necessarily the team that would buckle, it's not just about keeping someone on the rear end of you that makes you buckle. It's about seeing that gap coming down every single lap with relentless consistency. A 10th here, a 10th there. It's very, very intense. By the way, Kosovic and Kauppinen have switched positions, and Kauppinen's dropped back even another one with Felix Quernbach going on the attack for BS competition. They had a great race 1 last round. They normally go better in race 2s do BS competition, and this time they've been charging forward after a not great qualifying and giving themselves a bit to be hopeful for in the next race, and their overtaking seems to be absolutely fine.
Have to wait and see if maybe these guys have got the new team gear on. Maybe that's what's not giving them the charge. Some new BS competition merch, which is now publicly available. I wish more sim racing outfits would do that and let fans and maybe even commentators get in on the fun and get in on the action.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I think it's a really nice little touch. I know Red Bull Esports have done that recently as well. I was joking around with Zach Campbell that maybe he needs to get his new team, wherever that may be, to do something similar. We'll have to wait and see. 10 minutes, by the way, left on the clock. Some battles I'm keeping my eyes on. Of course, this one behind Martin Kroenke, Athon, Back, Oscari, Rene, Lewis Nager, Mac Backham, all in a train of cars. Conga line, if you will. The big green machine, 1 podium on the season so far. I don't think they're going to be able to hold on to 4th here. Maxime Briant is coming, and coming fast.
I will say, when it comes to team gear, by the way, just to return to that topic, just because I'm still salty about it. Red Bull Racing Esports, or G2 and that lot, where partially, or one of the team managers behind them being Mr. Dennis Lind, of British GT and that lot fame. He's raced plenty of bits, did Spa 24 as well a bit earlier in the year for WRT, running things a little bit behind the scenes there. And he used to well, still does run Nita Velix, and they were running under the brand of a couple of esports team, being Singularity and being Hydra Esports. And I am still owed, it was 2 years ago, and I'm still owed a t-shirt from those. If Dennis Lind, you're watching, you're not, but I will get this clip sent to you. Where's my t-shirt?
What you need to do is call him out on Twitter. I think that's the only way.
Right.
That's what I've learned. The only way you'll get something happen in the modern world is to send the receipts on Twitter as we ride on board with Briant. The CAD Jam is going once more. I must say, if anyone enjoys driving more than Briant, I would be shocked. You can always just see he is ready. Here he goes, up and down, bobbing and weaving. I mean, come on, he's just having a ball out there.
Again, we've seen some drivers do some bizarre things when they're driving. I don't even know if they realise then when they're doing it, because it happens every single time, which means that it's such a natural thing for them to do that they don't even think about doing it, that it just happened. I'm like, do you ever watch a video of yourself driving and think, what am I doing?
It could be worse. I mean, I've streamed in the past. I say I streamed because it's been like a full year since I've actually done that. I've done some pretty bizarre things. The thing that I always found most amusing is what I'd say when I win. Well, not even say. It's the guttural screams that would come out of me.
Was winning rare?
Semi-rare.
Yeah, same.
Well, here's the thing. When you win Le Mans, whether it be first, second, or third split, I mean, you're going to be excited.
A win's a win.
A win's a win. I mean, it was tough. I did a 24-hour race. I drove about 10 hours in the 24 and stayed up from, 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. So, yeah, I was tired. That's all I can say.
Yeah, 24-hour racing is a long day. I've only done a few 24-hour races in my career of sim racing, and I am not a massive fan. I must say that it is grueling. It is nasty. I much more enjoy doing a 12-hour race, because at least you don't have to deal. You get the start of the night stint, but then you get to that point when you in a 24-hour race we think, oh, I'm tired, I want to go to bed. In a 12-hour race you can go, I'm tired, I'm going to go to bed. Whereas in a 24 you're like, nope, can't. Let's see what happens between De Jong and Antunes, who's once again coming on the attack. This could be getting a little bit worse here for the 91, as diving back to the inside. Arnage competition on the attack, and this could be an extra point for the number 93 in that championship challenge. If they were to get through, it would mean the gap for the title going into the final race would be 4 points, which could make all the difference. It's such a small margin that it's an extra 25% on top of it.
Getting word in the YouTube chat that Matska has Briant covered. We'll have to wait and see with 6 minutes left on the clock. I think Antunes, though, is now the one that I'm keeping my eye on. Don't know if De Jong is losing time on these worn tires, or if just Antunes is coming on strong, but that BMW is lurking menacingly in the rearview mirror. And as we now jump on board with Jimmy Antunes, of course, very impressive in our season opener. Equally impressive from the Red Bull Ring. Pole position, and like we said, contact through turn number 1 spun them around, so they didn't even get to fight from the pole position that they earned in qualifying. But you'll note once more, just so much focus on the face here as through the final corner. 6 minutes left. De Jong trying to break the draft. I would suspect, Lewis, only 4 more laps for these drivers to try and get something done.
And this is the penultimate race of the season as well. We only have 1 more hour after this around here at the Nürburgring, and then somehow we're all done. That's it. There is not very much left to go for these drivers right now. We're in essentially the final 30, 40 minutes of their driving in this championship. They will start the next race. All the drivers that are on the grid right now, they will start the next race. And then when they're out of the car, it kind of leaves you a little bit deflated. Always. When you get out of the car and you know that your time is done in the race, it's always to go back to endurance racing. When you finish your final stint and it's not the end of the race, you kind of think, well, what do I do now? As Ross McFarlane and Guinness batter it out over 15th.
Yeah, this is the final points-paying position, not being the easiest of seasons for Pure Sims, who have a bit of damage to the rear end of their Audi. Did compete in the GTC class, as it was dubbed, for the Sports Car Endurance Championship in 2020-2021. They didn't manage to take the title. I think came up in second, but clearly a very experienced competitor in this Audi. Have to wait and see if maybe their luck and fortune turns around heading into a second endurance campaign, potentially in this very same car. Still waiting to hear what the car class choice is going to be for the endurance season, but hopefully with the season, Sprint Masters season coming to an end here today, we won't have to wait for too much longer to find out what the winter holds for drivers, for us here as broadcasters heading into the winter months. Does that Ferrari take a look? No, Guna is just a little bit too far behind. Let's watch then and try and just work our way through the gaps and see what's going to happen. Gap between Kova and Zach Campbell, 1 and a bit seconds. I don't think Campbell is close enough here. Maxime Briant still a little bit too far back from Tim Matska to make a move happen, so I think that YouTube chat comment might be right on the money.
It's just classic Kova right now. They are just running away really, really nicely. They are, yes, Campbell is applying pressure, he's getting a little bit closer bit by bit, but it's not enough, and it's Kova just doing what they are doing. It'll be 3 laps after this one. I thought he was driving then. I was like, not even bothered.
I'm pretty sure he's watching the broadcast, because you can see he's loading himself up, I think, into the next race, because he of course has to do the qualifying duties there.
Yeah, Antiohola, of course. I was just a little bit like, whoa, mind control. Just casually on your phone. Never go on your phone mid-race. Well, even if it's under a caution.
Well, what we clearly need is iRacing Mobile to become a thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Not just an April Fool's joke from however long ago it was.
I mean, I've done. I mean, look, who hasn't? We're gonna talk about now. When it comes to race starts and when it comes to cautions, been on the phone under a caution or whatever. Don't do it, because you're never focused on what's happening. You always crash into someone in front of you and then you ruin their day. And yes, I have done that. Don't do it.
I was gonna say, you're clearly speaking from experience there.
Yeah, both sides as well. I've had someone do it to me as well. It's just not worth it. Just load up Discord, have some banter with your mates. Not mid-race, just load in a call before.
Okay, I was going to say, are you advocating texting and driving there? And apparently not. Well, here we go. There is 2 minutes left on the clock. Gap now under a second. Campbell is coming on strong in the closing stages. It will be 2 laps to go this time around, because they should get across the line before the white flag is in the air. Yes, there'll be plenty of time here.
And again, this is the point where one slowdown penalty changes everything in this group. And Campbell is just trying to get there. I don't think there'll be an opportunity to pass, but the closer you are, it could come down to the final couple of corners. I mean, Campbell's consistency at this point in the race is absolutely insane. It's just been listing off lap time after lap time of, a tenth, 2 tenths between them, and constantly, every single lap has been a little bit faster than the Kova car directly ahead. Target is fully acquired for the Lamborghini. They were sore, was Apex Racing. They were really sore after, not as in sore losers, they took it well, but it hurt to lose that race at Monza. They don't want to do that again. They want to be right there. They want to try and win this race. They're close. There is still one more opportunity after this, but you never know what's going to happen in race 2 because it's always completely different than race 1.
And of course, these are cars scrapping it out for third in the championship. It was, what, 14 points coming into this one? So add 1 to Kova for getting pole position. It was 15 at the start of this 60-minute sprint. Might open up just a little bit too much for Campbell and Fluke to secure third in the championship. It will be the final lap this time around. It has been an impervious drive from Tuomas Tätälä and Antti Ahola so far, but still one final opportunity for some sort of a mistake to happen. Here we go, white flag in the air.
Kova's not normally the team to make a mistake though. They're normally bulletproof when it comes to their consistency, when it comes to their temperament behind the wheel. They know what they're doing. They are ice cold, as you would expect from a Finnish team. They know how to manage this stuff, but it is so tight between them. Just 0.6 of a second, and Tätälä is under pressure. The thing is, at this point, Campbell's only realistically going to get one proper opportunity. It is through the chicane and into the final corner, and it's not really an easy dive bomb opportunity. You can see it's closer. That Lamborghini is faster.
Is it fast enough, though? Jimmy Antunes in that Arnage BMW, I think, got his own slowdown penalty because he's coming under pressure now from Martin Kronke. That leaves Mitchell de Jong comfortable in 6th position. But here we go. Oh, Kronke's getting past Jimmy Antunes. What's going to happen, though, for the race lead? The final time they work themselves into the NGK chicane. A crucial run for Tuomas Tätälä, for Antti Ahola. No mistake being made. And for the second time this season, it will be Kova making their way to victory lane. A dominant display in the penultimate race on the championship. Once again, no emotion from the Kova guys. Light flash, they win for the penultimate time this season.
That was a smile.
For a second.
Bit of one.
For a second.
A bit of one. Very good, though. What a victory from Kova. Just took control, ran away. Apex had to do a little bit of work post-pit stop to get back ahead of VRS Coanda. They did that work and got back on it and nearly closed down to a potential race victory. Pace is looking good for the Lamborghini. Pace is looking good for the BMW. And Pace is looking good from the 93 right now when that comes to that title fight.
What happened to Arnage competition, though?
I think it was the slowdown penalty just built. We'd need to double check it. Oh, no, they dropped down quite a lot further, and they are not happy about it.
That is a boink if I've ever seen one.
I'm going to say that they had a slowdown penalty, and then they were assisted. They were battling with Ascari Rene at some point over the final lap, the course sim racing driver, and I wonder if there was a little bit of contact between the two, and clearly frustrated.
Let's go ahead and see if we can pick up what happened then. Oh, they had to come down onto pit road.
Oh.
Well, color me confused. That's all I can say right now. Color me confused indeed.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure myself. Was that not like around the pit lane sequence? Did that not jump back quite a bit further in the race? Because that's very confusing. Either way, quite clearly, something happened to our Arnage competition.
I think you're right. Maybe we jumped back a little bit too far, but I tell you what, race number... Oh, have you seen something?
I did just catch what it was. It was Ascari Rene, and it was coming through Varstina.
Well, I tell you what, let's first go ahead and take a look at our unofficial race results, and we will then try and see if we can dial up the RaceSpotTV replay machine. Kova is victorious. They were victorious at the start of the season. They're going to cap off this season with a second victory in 2021. Zach Campbell, Jamie Fluke, close once again here in the SCO Sprint Masters, but second place, they will settle, and they'll see what they can do in the final race of the season. Dane Warren now takes over the championship lead. It is 3 points between him and the 91, Joshua Rogers and Mitchell de Jong. It is a championship fight you do not want to miss. Tim Matska close to a second podium on the season for the big green machine, but Maniti Racing settled for fourth with Maxime Brienne in close pursuit. Mitchell de Jong came into this race as the championship leader, but they have everything needing to do now with 60 minutes left to go. Martin Kronke makes it 3 Coanda cars in the top 7 with Ascari Rene involved in some action in the closing stages. He finishes 8th with Urano 9th and a Lego Technic car, aka Coanda, rounding out our top 10. BS Plus competition wasn't the best qualifying for them. They're +8 up into 11th with Vendaval in their Audi in 12th. It was a wonderful charge from Daniel Lafuente in the early stages. Ate Kauppinen rounds that car off in 13th position, +10 from where they started at the tail end of the field, with Pure Sim's Core Sim Racing rounding out our top 15. Our notch competition unfortunately then dropped down to 16th with Core Sim Racing, Energy Sim Sport, R8G and Inex, the top 20 on our final finishers in the race. Luke Akita, David Williams and Bobo, all not finishers, or in the case of Dylan Shrivens, non-starters due to technical issues. Well, I tell you what, we are going to try and dial up what happened then with the Jimmy Antunes car. But Lewis, I think you know exactly what happened there.
So looking through it, I was wondering if it was a slowdown. I don't think it was. I think it was fuel, because unless that slowdown was on them for so long that it lasted all the way over an entire lap, which is impossible because it would give you a drive-through, I think they might have miscalculated the fuel because they were slow. They were close to contact. I will catch it back because they looked like they made contact through Varsteiner. But bearing in mind at this point, slowing down, still racing, and then watch what happens coming out of here. There's no contact between the two of them. I thought there might have been. It might have been pushed off a little bit. But the answer to that question is no. And then here, we're going to lift, we're going to lift, we're going to lift, we're going to back out.
Ooh, that has to be fuel. That has to be fuel. I think you're right. There goes BS Plus. There goes Vendaval up the hill, not where you want to be out of fuel. So that is not the way you want to finish the season, but just gives you an indication, Lewis, of how close these cars run in 60 minutes. They are cutting it ever so close on the fuel.
Now that will be a painful crawl all the way around. Absolutely. It's kind of one of those things, though, that it happens. I mean, miscalculating fuel is one of those things that happens. I mean, I've had it a couple of times. It's easy to do because when you're cutting it so fine, you're talking about a couple of litres here and there. It doesn't sound like much, but it adds up. And, you know, if you get it wrong, your car starts to chug, you slow down. Big time.
Absolutely, and I mean, well, 60 minutes done, 60 minutes still to go. I cannot wait for the season finale, Lewis. I have to say, I really do think the 93 car is in the driver's seat heading into this final race of the season.
They've got a slender lead, a very, very small lead. The same lead the 91 came into the round with. It can so easily switch back that way. At the moment, things are looking good, but the experience of Mitchell de Jong and Josh Rogers is going to be a tough one to beat. Although that said, I will say I'm not necessarily convinced by Mitchell de Jong's pace at the moment. Just seems a couple of tenths, like the smallest margin, too slow, which is really harsh way of putting it. But when you consider that Dane Warren and Charlie Collins are matched on pace pretty much dot to dot, when Josh Rogers' pace is great, Mitchell de Jong's pace is good, is brilliant, but just not there.
Well, and I think maybe his attention slightly focused on eNASCAR Coca-Cola duties as well, heading into their playoff run. One race still to go. We've got to make our way over to that second race session. While we do so, let's go ahead and take a look at this Nürburgring Sprint Strecker layout once more with VRS Coanda driver coach Jeremy Bootsloop.
Welcome to the VRS circuit walk for the final race weekend of the VRS SCO Sprint Masters at the Nürburgring. I'm VRS driver coach Jeremy Bootsloop, driver of the number 81 VRS Honda Sim Sport Racing in the Mercedes AMG GT3. While the Nürburgring is famous for the 13-mile Nordschleife, this weekend we'll be racing on the shortened sprint strecker layout. And it's not often that this layout gets used for top-level sim racing events, and thus will mark yet another change of pace for drivers in what has been a championship full of new and unique layouts. Join me while we take a peek of what this tricky alternate layout has in store. While there are some interesting modifications to this shorter layout, the first sector remains the same. That means we have the fun combo of the long front straight into the hard braking zone of turn 1. With a top speed of about 230 kph into the braking zone and needing to get the car down to about 60 for the apex of turn 1, this will make it one of the best passing areas on track. And with how wide the track is at turn 1, you can fully expect some bold moves here to start the race. Coming off turn 1, the Mercedes arena is going to be the same as well. Turn 2 is particularly important as the next corner is a place someone could make a dive to try and pick up spots. On top of that, turn 3 and 4 flow together, so it's important to run a line off of turn 3 that sets you up for the entry of turn 4. This is the corner that makes the layout where it is. We'll be cutting the downhill section entirely, so while the corner itself isn't that tight, this part of the track is quite narrow, so while passing is possible, it's not going to be easy. Expect some mistakes here, as most drivers will be used to the flow of the GP circuit, so while people have thousands of laps around there, not that many are used to taking this right-hander. A smaller shakeup is the chicane. Many of the GT series typically run the faster GT style chicane. However, this layout has a tighter chicane typically seen in Formula 1. As such, it becomes a better passing opportunity. Plus, like we've seen at Zolder and Monza, the chicane is quite technical and you need to know exactly how much curb you can take to maximize the speed, yet not take too much so that you don't lose the car. Now that we've gone over some of the highlights, let's watch an onboard lap of this short alternate circuit. Alright, so here we are on board of the Mercedes AMG GT3, getting nicely out of the last corner into the straight here, trying to carry as much speed as possible, very important, before heading into turn 1, which is going to be a hard braking zone. Braking at 100 here, super hard as I said, to the left side of the track, then looking to the bollard, and nicely on exit here on throttle, smoothly, then heading towards turn 2, where we're going to try and take a late apex to maximize the exit completely on the right side of the track. Then to turn 3 and 4, where patience is going to be important into and out of turn 3 to set up turn 4 nicely, hitting the curb here on the inside, then tracking out as much as possible on the left, then approaching turn 5 completely on the left, braking at 100 here, slowing down the car nicely, staying to the inside, back on throttle carefully, tracking out to the left here, then back to the right for left-right, going on the curb on the inside, moving out here to the outside as much as possible, back to the left, to the right again, onto the curb here a little bit, and then just making sure to get a clean exit here, which is going to be very important because then there's another straight where top speed is going to be key. Now by the end of it, there's going to be another hard braking zone here for the slow chicane, braking at 100, taking the curbs really important, so a little bit the first one, more the second one, putting the car straight as much as possible, staying on the left and preparing for the last corner, crucial, going to the inside here, carefully back on throttle, opening up the steering wheel, on the curb on exit, and then just maximizing everything, then crossing the start finish line to finish the lap. That's it. Thanks for watching the VRS circuit walk for the final run of the VRS SCO Sprint Master Series at the Nürburgring. With $25,000 up for grabs, this will be a spicy one.
And so 60 minutes done, 60 still to go. And Lewis, what a season we've had so far. Before we get into qualifying for the final time, let's just talk a little bit about some of the standout names. Yes, there have only been a couple of teams that have won, Coanda, Kova and Altus, and BS Competition, but across the grid we've seen some incredible drive, some incredible competition. Really shows that GT3 racing, so many teams have been waiting for it to become a major part of competitive iRacing competition once more. We have been rewarded with some incredible fun. Lewis has forgotten to unmute himself once more. Classic rookie mistake, Lewis.
Every time. I'm not very good at this. I'm trying to be respectful to just in case you've not always assume the mic's hot. No, of course, we've had a fantastic season. We've visited plenty of brilliant venues, not just, again, sticking to the same format of going to this sort of Grand Prix venue and that sort of Grand Prix venue. We've taken some gambles. We've gone to Zolder, we've come to the Nürburgring, but not, as you were saying earlier, not the Grand Prix layout. We've gone to the Sprint Strecker as something that's a bit more of an experiment, as something to see, something different. And what do we get? We get different styles of racing every single time we go to it, and it's brilliant.
The shortcut actually proving to be a bit more of a passing opportunity than I thought it would be. And while you can't get in on the fun anymore, we would like to shout out Lego and Coanda, our series sponsors. Wonderful Lego 911 RSR kits that you could have won by going to giveaway.sportscaropen.com. We'll be giving away one final 911 RSR Technic kit as well as our VRS Direct Force Pro at the end of this broadcast, so do not go anywhere. If you were entered, you'll find out if you've won come about 2 hours time or so. We are moments away from getting into qualifying, Lewis. Let's talk about the championship then. 2 cars left at the front. The 91, like you said just before we went and took a look at our VRS track walk, not necessarily looking as consistent as Dane Warren and Charlie Collins. I really think, if not for the struggles that they had, at Zolder, where they really didn't even get on the board in terms of significant points, I think the 93 car would already have the championship locked up. Instead, they have to now fight for 60 more minutes.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can also pass that one back to the 91 for the first round of the season. They did not reach the lofty heights we were expecting at the Hockenheimring, and that's just how the season's gone. It's been up and down from everyone on the grid, and they've managed to find their way through at the right time. And let's be honest, who cares of the ups and downs? What we have is a tight championship fight coming into one final hour of racing here at the Nürburgring. And by the way, speaking of the Nürburgring, you know how I said I've raced and I got a podium? Now I'm going to show it on the screen.
Oh!
Fancy that.
It's even got the nice little logo on it. I do like that indeed. I'm glad you had it on hand as well.
Thank you.
Well, I think this is going to come all the way down to the wire, Lewis. I really think we won't know who's going to be our champion until the checkered flag. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see. Qualifying about to get underway. Let's go ahead once more and take a look at our driver wall. Onboard webcams with basically the entirety of the field. Daniel Lafuente, you can see getting the gloves on. He was gloves off at the start of the race. Let's see how he does as qualifying indeed works itself underway. The cars roll themselves off of the pit lane. 20 minutes for them to set their fastest lap time. And of course, the fun thing about qualifying here in the SCO Sprint Masters, Lewis, you cannot get away with something. You cannot have a small off, pushing too hard, reset yourself back to pit lane and go once again. Instead, you have to get things done right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the format that we've got where we see 2 different drivers qualify in both races. But if there's one thing about the series that I like, probably more so than anything else, from a genuine perspective, it's the qualifying. In the sense that I like that it's a real session. It's genuine. It's not as if, oh, I'm not happy with that lap, I'm going to bail from it. I've said this time and time again through this season. I love the idea that you have to strategize with qualifying, that every lap you do on the racetrack matters. You've got your out laps, you've got your in laps, you've got your time laps. All of them are they consist of time that takes up in the session, which means that you want to be on time lap as many times as you can. It's a very different battle than what most are used to. Obviously, the standard is the typical 8-minute 2-lap sessions that we get in iRacing, where you do your out lap, you do your 2 time laps, and he's like, right, cool, I'm 8th on the grid, fantastic. On to the race. It's like, no. There needs to be a story from qualifying. That's exactly what we get here. And look, Core, they've gone around, they've felt that their outlet wasn't good, they've maybe made a bit of contact or whatever, and they've come straight back into the pit lane because they can't just carry on from where they are. They can't just escape. They've got to come in, they've got to repair whatever damage it is that it was, got to change the tyres however many that they want to do, and then get back on with the session as if it's part of the race.
Interesting. That's all I'll say, because I don't think you want to be in the draft, that's for sure, but I also don't think you necessarily want to abandon, in effect, a qualifying run, because now only with 17 minutes left to go, they have to work their way back up. The Bulls out front are working together. Jamie Fluke, Kevin Ellis Jr. on qualifying duties will mean that Zach Campbell and Maxime Brient bring these cars to the green flag. They were looking quick in race number 1, Lewis. We'll see how race 2 goes for them. If qualifying goes their way, I would not be shocked to finally see Apex Racing Team taking a victory.
It's again, I said it when you called it as the 99. As much as we don't like being biased as commentators, we want to be open and such. There is part of me that's like, I really want to see an Apex car win. It's like they've been so close a couple of times this season. They definitely deserve one. They have been a great story throughout the season, and right now to cap off the season would be a fantastic sight to see them taking top honours. Of course, those 2 across the line, the only 2 setting times at the early part of the session, but either way, it is a 1-2. Everyone hit F12, take a screenshot of that, and away we go.
Quintin Violate for the R8G team was provisional 3rd before Charlie Collins put himself on the front row. 2nd spot for them. Where is the 91 car? Waiting to get Joshua Rogers across the line. The times are coming in thick and fast. I don't think Rogers had a lap time from lap number 1, so clearly he's gone just that little bit too wide, got on an off track and invalidated his lap time.
maybe, yeah, something like that was potentially quite close to the back of Ricardo Rico as well. It's not the end of the day. The tyres around here, they can realistically do a couple of laps before they drop off, but because you would suggest that in the sense that if that wasn't the case, Josh Rogers would have come straight back into the pit lane at the end of the first lap, and you know, it's fine. At this point in the session, this is not a drama. This is absolutely fine, especially someone like Josh Rogers, Mr. Qualifying, knows exactly what he is doing. I would be surprised if we saw this car outside of the front three positions.
Just over 15 minutes left on the clock. Does Rogers stay out? Does Rogers come in? Rogers is clearly indicating he's coming in. Now we wait and see. Does anyone improve? Jamie Fluke improves. Oh, half a tenth between Ellis Jr. and Fluke. It's an Apex Racing 1 and 2. Will that hold? I know Alex Simpson will be delighted with how qualifying's going so far.
Yeah, brilliant stuff to see a 1-2 at the moment. Of course, first real laps completed, first stints done. Everyone back into the pit lane. The first 5 minutes of the session have been completed. The number 5 is allowed to qualify this time. Obviously, they weren't allowed to last time, and with Lafuente behind the wheel for qualifying, we'll see. You know, won't get the blistering race starts. As we've seen, Urano, HKM. Up into 5th. Lamborghini's looking pretty good around here.
I know. That's what I was thinking as well. Great to see the Bulls really aggressive here. Hasn't been the easiest season by any stretch of the imagination. Was talking with Zach Campbell in the build-up to round 1, and he basically said, Hockenheim, they're not good through the fast corners, they're not good through the slow corners, they're slow on the straight. Basically complaining, as people tend to do when it comes to BOP conversations. My car's not good anywhere. I mean, that's what you usually expect to hear when it comes to BOP conversations.
I despise having BOP conversations with drivers. It really, it's just like, oh yeah, no, of course. God amongst men, are you? Of course. No, it's never that bad, but obviously, you know, you do have that thing. Because always when you're behind the wheel, you're always biased to the issues that you have to deal with week in, week out. You don't really kind of think, you just think, well, the Mercedes is a bullet in a straight line. It's like, yeah, but you say that, but you don't really think of like the negatives that the car has. You only think of the positives that everyone else's car has, and obviously that's how you know, GT racing is. It's a balancing act between cars. You pick a car that's good for the season, not good for one race, unless you're only targeting one race. I mean, if you were in a season where you went to the Circuit de la Sarthe, you'd aim to be really fast in a straight line, and yes, you'd accept that around some circuits you're going to struggle, but you know that you have that one ace card in the season where, you know, realistically that's the one that you can target. Around here, you know, you need to pick a car that's good across the season. Thankfully, it's kind of easy across the season because we've got a wide variety of circuits that realistically no car matches perfectly any week. So basically anything you take should be all right.
Well, the other thing is you didn't really have that same sort of a choice as you'd usually have, right? Because of that qualifying format that pre-qualifying format that we had. The top 5 qualifiers in each car got through. So you may have thought you were quickest in one. For example, we've seen Maniti racing in Audis, for example, but they qualified in the Mercedes, not necessarily saying they were slow in the Audis, just the way things shook out and the way they wanted this season to go. Here we go then, more qualifying lap times about to come in. The BMW of Ricardo Rico now tucked up behind. Well, which Mercedes is that? That's the question, because there's 2 of those co-handed Mercedes and always difficult. I think that's Jeremy Bouteloup in the 81 car. The Frenchman having a pretty good race, number 1, qualifying right now, stuck in 17th spot.
But again, this is after the first couple of laps. It's nothing major. And by the way, Josh Rogers has put in a blistering 2-minute 54.3. Obviously not an actual lap time. That includes an out lap as well, but is back out onto the racetrack to start another lap time as we ride on board with Ricardo Rico, who again, this is a team that we kind of want to see something from, in the sense that they had pole position last round. They had it sort of robbed from them at turn 1. They'll feel hard done by in that, and they'll want to come back and actually challenge, at least for a podium, surely.
We'll have to wait and see, but That's Kova running very, very wide. Is that going to compromise the laps of Boutaloop and Rico across the line? Let's see what the lap time is. First Boutaloop will cross, then Rico under the BMW bridge. It's a 1:25.214. Puts them up into third. Maniti jumps to sixth as well. Here comes the quick lap times. No banker laps going in now as the 18 Coanda car provisionally 10th for a moment. There's the Inex Ferrari. Another good qualifying performance here in the Eiffel Mountains. They sit in 8th.
Yeah, Jarl Tyne behind the wheel of Inex obviously started the first race and now doing the qualifying session. simracing up into 6th position as well in the Ferrari, so nice to see the Ferrari starting to do well. Josh Rogers is going to cross the line now, and the time is a 1:25.108 straight up to the top of the session. There he is, Mr. Qualifying. Hello and welcome.
And I tell you what, take a look at this. That is a smile on his teammate's face. The king of qualifying jumps behind the wheel and takes the spot that you always expect him to be at, the front of the field. It does mean if he can hold there, De Jong is now going to have to fight tooth and nail to really defend from, I think, some cars who will be very, very happy to take that lead away from him.
And this is where the likes of Charlie Collins might be feeling a little bit sick in his stomach, thinking, oh, how do I respond to that? You know, when you've got to out-qualify one of the very, very best in sim racing, with it being a 3-point gap, 3-point gap between the two of them. Again, just to put it clearly, whoever wins, wins. Because there's a 5-point gap between first and second. So regardless, if the 91 wins the race, if the 93 is second, it doesn't matter. And of course, it would be a 92-point gap if it was to end like this, because it's an extra point for pole position. So this championship is going to get tighter, I feel, right now. You know, with Josh, you could kind of expect it with Josh Rogers in qualifying that there was a pole position coming from the 91, but not over yet.
Not over by any stretch of the imagination as Urano, the 90 car, Daniel Pastor improves to a 4th position. All eyes on Charlie Collins, though, because he's got some work to do, like Lewis mentioned, going up against one of the best in sim racing, not just in terms of racecraft, but in terms of pure outright performance. I called it Ayrton Senna syndrome. Might be calling it Josh Rogers syndrome here on the sim very shortly. Jamie Fluke now up to the NGK chicane. Not taking too much curb at this point in time. Is he going to come down onto pit road? Yes, he is. So that's the 99 car electing to pull its way down. Does Kevin Ellis Jr. follow? Yes, he does. Lamborghini's down onto pit road.
I kind of feel a little bit bad for Charlie Collins. He's just coming through the final corner now. For such a young talent to our sport of sim racing, there is a lot of pressure on his shoulders on this lap. And this is the kind of point where you're just like, I'm going to switch off all data. I don't want anything. I don't want to know what position I'm in. I don't want to know if I'm improving on the lap time. I don't want to know about the cars ahead of me.
That's
lap
lap traffic.
Close there with Energy, yeah, coming out of the pit lane there. I believe it was the Energy Sim Sports Ferrari. Not 100% sure at the corner of my eye. Flew past it so fast. But yeah, you want to remove all data because I don't want to know if I'm up, down, or anything. I know you're at this point in the race, in the qualifying, in your experience. You know if you're on a good lap or not. I don't need a computer to tell me. You just drive. Just do what you're doing best.
I think you're right. I definitely think it's just about minimizing the amount of things that you're thinking about. Collins throws himself into the shortcut. Very short line being taken there, using curb on inside and exit as well. Through the Michelin curve he works. What's the lap time going to be? It's 50 seconds and counting. I don't know how quick he's looking at this point in time. Onto the back straightaway.
Look at his eyes when he was running through that corner. Not looking at the apex. Boom, data, data, data. Boom, boom, boom.
Got more lap traffic and look at the train in front. That's not what you want to see as you come to finish what should be a quick lap. This is the amount of curb you can take. Pretty sideways. Don't think this is going to be the lap, and indeed Collins bails. He's down onto pit road.
You could see, like, he knew straight away come through the chicane because, again, looked straight up, not at anything else but the delta. It's all it was looking at right there, and this is why I say get rid of the data sometimes. But you could even see coming through Varstina onto the back straight was, like I say, coming through the corner, and it wasn't just once, it was bam, 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 again, data, data, data. What, I don't know quite what he was looking at. Obviously, we don't know exactly what's on his screen, what data is there, but was clearly looking at something constantly, and that's the point, is what I'm saying. Focus on your apex. But this is why these drivers are the very best. because they can pick all that information whilst hooking up all the apexes and accelerating at the right time and setting a lap time faster than most of us can dream of. They're the very best.
Rogers, 400s clear on pole right now. Does he improve into the business end of qualifying? 6.5 minutes left on the clock. Rogers through the shortcut, down and up he goes. This, I think, might be the lap time. He is looking very, very smooth, and that's what sometimes is quick. A little bit sideways, but all okay. In through Warsteiner. Run yourself to the AstroTurf on the outside. Mount that curb and throw yourself down the hill in towards the NGK chicane. 6 minutes to go. Qualifying comes to a head for Rogers, the king of qualifying on so many occasions. Can he improve on a 1:25.109? Looking good as the Urano Audi pulls out of the way. One final corner for the Australian to get this lap time done. A little bit sideways once more, slipping and sliding goes Rogers. Doesn't look too happy, but what's the time going to be? It's a 1:10. That is consistency personified.
Couldn't get much closer to his best lap time. 1,000th of his pole time. Again, this is why he's the king of qualifying. To not only have one lap that we're getting pole position at the moment, but to have two, be that close, very, very impressive.
Now can Kevin Ellis Jr. manage to pip him? He is looking very racy this weekend and full of confidence, of course, after qualifying himself for another World Championship campaign. Ellis across the line, and it's pole position, a 1:25.097, 100th of a second between first and second.
Now Josh Rogers will feel a bit more disappointed in the lack of improvement. Such a small margin, and once again Charlie Collins will be coming up towards the final corner, hopefully with a bit less traffic at hand. You can see he's pulling along the R8G car, the one that Quinton Villarte is driving right now. You've got Kova, you've got BS competition in this train, but again I don't think that Charlie Collins is that bothered about those that are in his slipstream, because it's not really the circuit that matters about slipstream. But once again, yet again, there is traffic ahead of him.
It's not going the way the 93 car would have wanted. Collins and Warren might have some work to do. It's once more, I think, an energy Ferrari that pulls itself out of the way. They may get one more run after this. That would be it. So for Collins, he knows this is the business time. Does also look like, by the way, the technical issues for Dylan Strivens and the Urano Esports number 95 might have been resolved, Lewis, so we may be looking at a 23-car grid for this final 60 minutes in the season.
Yeah, it was a power cut for the Huawei car, and obviously Dylan Strivens is on track at the moment, so I'm going to assume that things are A-OK at the moment for Strivens, so should be all good. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen again. Charlie Collins, Ad Van Bogen, tick. A little bit too much curb there. Might have just halted a little bit of progress. I mean, when we're talking tiny thousandths of a second. Got the Arnage competition car and Core Sim Racing Ferrari directly ahead. That may actually give a little bit of assistance, but that might be a little bit too wide. Coming through the chicane. It's not an off track, I don't think, or it might be. Dived straight down into pit lane. Did not fancy it. Just overdid it again.
It is not going well for the car leading the points by 3 single points. It is so close, and these are the margins that sometimes define championships. Kova go up to 8th position. The top 11 cars separated by 2/10 out on track. You can see 15th and 16th matched each other in terms of lap times. 23 cars, Lewis, separated by half a second.
Yeah, and this is where you come out, you do the lap of your career, and you're 3/10 off, and you're outside of the top 20 somehow. You're sort of thinking, what? But how? How is that? How is this possible? It's just how competitive everyone's able to basically ride at the same level, and it's why we see the differences between race 1 and race 2 in the VRS Sports Car Open Sprint Masters, where you come into each race, and each race is completely different because the margins are so tight that everyone's nailing it just at slightly different times. And when the level of perfection is such a fine level, I mean, it's basically it's German engineering.
It really is, and as you mentioned, so different. Kova pole position in race 1. Antiohola currently sits 8th, 1.5 tenths off the pace. Williams Esports Razor, they're coming out right into the path of traffic. Not going to be ideal for them because they know that they need to still get around to start their lap time. They will come to a complete stop to let 4 cars go in towards turn number 1. It is Mercedes, Ferrari, Audi. Pure Sims and Vendaval tucked up behind Inex and the Coanda cars. Really now looking to try and see who is going to improve in the dying stages. Daniel Pastor is on what I think is a pretty quick lap. Joshua Rogers is starting what will be his final flying lap.
And he's got Kova just in tow, maybe a little bit too much curb down at T1 from the king of qualifying. Although, I don't think it's fair for me to judge his line in a qualifying session. We'll have to wait and see if there's going to be an improvement. He needs to find just 12 thousandths of a second to build it up and to challenge for pole position. The Urano Esports HKM car picks up Charlie Collins and Quinton Violate, who's just sat on the rear end of that Porsche once more. Big bit of curb. And let's see if there is going to be any improvement from Daniel Pastor. I'm not necessarily convinced, and that's why.
Because he's going to be starting cone murder as well. I must say the steward's doing a great job to get those cones set back up every single time. Pastor will go across the line to start his lap time. Right behind him, though, all eyes focused on that 93 car. So much pressure on the shoulders of Charlie Collins because he knows this has got to be the lap of his season.
Yeah, it's got to be the greatest lap that he has put down on a racetrack. He's got just behind him Quinton Violate, who'll be trying to just sit there on the rear expecting this lap. He's been expecting it all session as Violate in the RHE Esports Junior car. Just basically sat there wondering what will be. Is it pole position? The answer to that question is no. Josh Rogers denied at the moment. Maybe we'll go for one more. Still has a little bit of time left on the clock, but I'm not sure the tyres will be so great on the second lap. We'll have to wait and see. They should be okay with it being such a short lap, but again, so close to grabbing pole position, missed out by a few hundredths of a second once more, and I think he might well have bailed out of it, especially with that face. It looks like it's good for Apex. They've crossed the line. They've done their first and third at the moment.
BS Competition and Kova, they're done in qualifying. Inex, Bila, they're on pit road as well. All focus now on the 93 car. They have struggled in qualifying so far. Can Charlie Collins magic something up? The young Welshman out of the NGK chicane for the final time in qualifying this season. What is it going to be? The 81 Coanda Mercedes makes its way up to 12th position.
He's not happy.
He's not happy. Urano goes up to 3rd. Collins improves, but it doesn't count, does it?
Oh, it was a 156. It would have been enough for 4th place. That is rough.
Instead, he will be starting in 6th position. Apex, I think, have bailed from qualifying. They know they are comfortable, at least for the time being. Kevin Ellis Jr. gets a pole position.
Bravo.
The first for Apex Racing Team since Monza. And guess what? It was Kevin Ellis. It was the 98 car from the Temple of Speed.
Bravo. Great from both of the Apex cars. And our championship fight will come down to the wire. No bonus point for Josh Rogers. It will be a 3-point margin heading into the very last race of the season. Just to give you a few points as well, if it's 2nd and 3rd, if the 91 is 2nd, if the 93 is 3rd, does get up onto the podium, the 91 will still win the championship by a point. A single point, because it's 4 points, 20 plays 16. So this is a tight fight. Basically, they just need to be, the only target for the 93 needs to be get ahead of the 91. However you do it, get ahead.
For one final time this season, let's turn up the most famous song in all of esports. 60 minutes to decide our championship. Let's take a look at our starting grid here from the Nürburgring. And so on pole position for the 2nd time this season, Kevin Ellis Jr., Maxime Brient will take us to the green flag. The king of qualifying comes up short, but 3 points off the championship lead. The 91 car sits in a very comfortable spot in 2nd position. Half a tenth between Daniel Pastor and Kevin Ellis Jr., with a 2nd Apex Racing car rounding out the top 4. I think Apex Racing Team looking very, very strong here from the Eifel Mountains. Ricardo Rico and Arnaud's competition looking to bounce back after running out of fuel in race number 1 with the championship leader on the outside of row number 3. What can Dane Warren, what can Charlie Collins do from 6th? Phil Denez was victorious from the Red Bull Ring in race number 1. They're looking to recover after just finishing outside the top 10. They'll be alongside race 1 winner Antiohola and Kova Esports. The Big Green Machine, Maniti Racing in 9th with Carl Janssen, the best of the Core Sim Racing Ferraris, on the edge of the top 10, with Core Sim Racing in 11th and RAG Junior in 12th. Inex Racing looked very, very quick in their Ferrari. Slight issues through the shortcut. They'll line up in 13th, hopefully not unlucky number 13. Martin Kroenke 14th, with David Williams the second of the Coanda Mercedes right behind. Vendaval Sim Racing on the edge of row number 8, with Williams Esports Razor, still a lot of work for them to do, back in 17th spot. Lego Technic Esports, they'll line up then in the 18th position with Nicholas Laubish, Corentin Gunes on the edge of the top 20. 3 more cars in our season finale. It's Bila Racing Euronics, Pure Sims Esports, and Energy Sim Sport. Lewis, you know what time it is for the final time this season. Let's get some predictions under our belt. I tell you what, I'm going to go first here. I'm going to go a little bit boring. I'm going to say Apex Racing Team. I don't think I can pick a car though. Both the 98 and the 99 looking very, very strong.
I can't pick Apex, only because I'm desperate not to curse them. It's not in a sense that I'm just going to throw someone else under the bus. But there is a team that I think could make this one stick. They're not qualified at the front. They qualified a little bit further down. They won the last race. I think it's Kova time once more.
Oh, that's bold, especially after how we cursed them earlier this season.
Yeah. Cursing them again, though, it's fine. They're only up for 3rd position in the championship. Yes, it feels harsh. I don't know. Anyone we speak about, we're cursing. And after all the work this season, it comes down to this. We're cursing someone. I just don't know who we should.
It
can't be the championship contenders.
It can't be them. It cannot be them. But it all comes down to this. 60 more minutes. $25,000 is on the line as we conclude the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Masters. We are live from the Nürburgring and we are ready to go racing for the final time this season. It's Maxime Brienne, it's Mitchell de Jong on the front row as we get green flag underway, and already they fan themselves out under the BMW bridge and down the hill into turn 1. Zach Campbell looking very racy as he tries to challenge de Jong around the outside of turn 1. De Jong is going to close the door off and challenge for the race lead as the 93 car looks to get his way up into the top 5 as well. They'll get through cleanly turn number 1 and in towards the Mercedes-Benz arena. Apex Racing sitting in 2nd and 3rd. Mitchell de Jong already to the race lead.
Yeah, and also coming through in all this, Dane Warren's up to 4th position. He was going aggressive on the start. It's Coanda Apex Coanda, as there's a couple of issues in the background. You can see once again Dane Warren trying to pick up a position on Zach Campbell, desperate to do so. You can see the top 2 starting to clear away. An issue for the Urano Esports HKM car, picked up now by Maniti, by Kova, that are running side by side, running down towards Warsteiner, and maybe going to make that move stick. It is going to be Maniti hanging on. Issues in the background. Was that one of the Coanda cars?
It was Pash Gergis, the Greek driver in the number 18 Coanda Mercedes. Not the first time we've seen a Coanda Mercedes around on the opening couple of laps in towards the NGK chicane with 59 minutes left on the clock. 3 points separate the 91 and the 93. 3 cars separate, the 3 positions I should say, separate them on track. It will be de Jong across the line with Brienne in 2nd, Campbell in 3rd. And Dane Warren, the 93 car, lots of work for them to do in 4th, but right behind them, Gini Antunes is coming under pressure from Oscari Rene.
Yeah, big weave there on the start-finish straight from de Jong, just trying to break the slipstream. Not weaving in defence, just weaving in that slipstream just to extend that a little bit down to turn 1, and wasn't really followed too hard by the 2 Apex cars. Dane Warren needs to get back onto the rear end of the 2 Lamborghinis if they have any aspirations of continuing this title fight for the next 58 minutes. It's tight behind. We've got this as well, was the RAG Esports car going side by side with the Urano Esports Huawei that was qualified by Dylan Scrivens. It missed the previous race. Laubish comes into the side, and look at who's coming through. Of course it's Williams.
Not the first time we've seen the Williams Esports Razor car making some hay on the start. Kaupinen now up into 12th position. The Lego Technic car trying to get in on the front. RAG and Urano still side by side through the Michelin curve as we're still only on lap number 2. Once more, these cars are losing track of the cars in front, but Never mind that, it's some exceptional fun we're having. The Lego Technicar just breaking the draft very slightly. Meanwhile, 8 seconds up the road. It's an Apex Racing 2 and 3. Would not be surprised if Zach Campbell tries to get on past. He's got a slowdown penalty. He's checking up Dane Warren.
Oh, this is dramatic. This is very dramatic, not only for, of course, Zach Campbell, but of course for Dane Warren and his issues. Also, slowdown penalty for Kauppinen, who's just dropped down out of the final chicane. You can see they're just pulling off to the left-hand side at the rear end, a shot in that bright green. God, you can't miss it, can you? As it's way down the order. I'm not necessarily sure if Zach Campbell actually got a slowdown penalty, if it was just a poor exit on the run into the final corner, because he's not dropped back behind Dane Warren. It might be okay.
Williams Esports 3 wide with BS competition. Pure Sims gets run very slightly wide and into the Mercedes-Benz arena, still side by side. The Williams Esports Razor car makes contact with Ross McFarlane. McFarlane is spun around and Julian Sunnan gets involved as well. Yeah, just clumsy, 3-4 wide. Just doesn't really work into the arena section. They were pushing it, and obviously Kauppinen was just trying to serve the slowdown penalty to its completion and was dropping back into the pack. At the moment, though, at the front of the field, once again, the number 98 that is currently being driven by Maxime Brient is closing down on Mitchell de Jong, is applying pressure to the 91 that's leading the race at the moment, as the two's been off the road coming down through the shortcut. 91 leads 98, leads 99, leads 93, a whole lot of 90s at the front of the field, but the 23 of Arnage competition that don't care one bit about third in the championship, about the championship lead, they are not bothered. They want themselves a podium, they want themselves a win. They feel they're owed one. Should put it on the table that I think third in the championship kind of going to be tough for anyone to pip Kova. They were 20 points clear after race 1 on the weekend, so it's going to take a victory for Zach Campbell in that 99 car and some struggles for the Kova car that's currently sitting in the 8th position. Let's turn our attention to the RaceSpotTV replay machine and see if we can pick up what happened first for Pash Gergis here. Is that a self-spin for the Mercedes coming through turn? We'll have to wait and see here. Hard to... Yeah, I think that's mostly self-inflicted there.
There was a little bit of contact between them and the two, the RHG Esports Junior car, but it was such a light tap. And it certainly wasn't the blame, at least from that angle, from the RHG Audi. Let's take a look as well at what's happened out of the Mercedes arena section. Watching the energy... Oh, yeah, I mean, we all saw that, fair enough.
Yeah, we know what was the culprit there. Let's check out this incident 3 wide in front of Julian Sunnan, and I don't think there's much he could realistically have done here. Is it the Williams car that just comes across a bit too aggressively? Sunnan has to come to a complete stop to avoid the stricken Ross McFarlane car, and then a second incident for Julian Sunnan. What happens to the young Frenchman here? Oh, that's contact with Pash Gergis.
Yeah, that was sent, dare we say, running down into the shortcut. Not great. I mean, it's just how it goes sometimes. Look at that 91. It is checking out right now, and the 93 of Dane Warren is feeling it, but just not enough straight line speed to get by the Lambos.
Arnage has now dropped to 8th position. Well, I guess another slowdown. That last corner, the last chicane, I should say, takes no prisoners. It's really brutal, and given how much curb you do need to cut and attack that corner, not a surprise to see that be the case right now. Let's jump on board, though, with that car that sits in 4th position, right behind the Apex Racing train of cars. He sees his teammate in front of them, though, and the championship on the line.
I mean, I feel bad right now. Obviously, it's looking pretty grim. Not looking over, looking grim at the moment for the number 93. The 91's at the front. It's leading by around a second. If it starts to extend much more than that, then they have a very, very serious problem. At the moment, it's not over. It's just not looking great. I mean, if you're Charlie Collins, you know that if you're going to win this championship, it's because you need to go in a proper toe-to-toe fight with Josh Rogers.
And the equation is pretty simple here, Lewis. It's win the race, win the championship.
Yeah, done. Don't need to think about, oh, what position, what ifs. Don't care. Win the race. It's the only thing that matters right now, and they've both won a lot of races this season, the 91 and the 93. Just one more, but it is the hardest one.
It's 3 victories apiece coming into the weekend. Who is going to leave the champion? Who is going to win their 4th race out of 12 on the season? Just shows how strong they've been as an outfit and as individuals as well across a previous 11 hours of racing. That gap has very slowly been extended. Now 9/10 between Brienne and De Jong as De Jong tries to set sail and just pull away. And we maybe had said that De Jong wasn't feeling the most comfortable, wasn't the most consistent in terms of his pace, Lewis, but, well, it's proving us wrong right now.
Certainly is. I mean, Mitchell de Jong's clearly found some pace after the race one. Not that he was slow in race one. It is a very hard word to put to it because the pace was good. It just wasn't quite good enough in race one. The smile was back on his face after qualifying. I mean, maybe less so at the actual drop of the checkered flag. And I'm sure if you pulled him out of the car at the end of the stint, if it continues on with this trend, the smile will absolutely be back on Mitchell de Jong's face. The work will have to go to Josh Rogers. The gap is once again coming down as Maxime Brienne is right there. I think it's just about minimising risk and not getting that really painful slowdown, which right now, if he got that slowdown penalty, I'd say it would put him behind Dane Warren. The top four are pulling away from the rest of the group, and you can see there, intent just to break the slipstream straight out of the final corner, all the way over to the right-hand side, all the way back over to the left. Breaking that slipstream, doing what he knows best, just trying to pull away.
It was about 6 or 7 tenths at the line. These four are starting to run away. Oskari Rine up 5 positions from where he started into the top 5, being chased down by Tim Matska, who of course will switch that car on over to the Bonga drums. Watch for the wonderfully numbered 78 car to maybe try and challenge for a very impressive finish to a season. 4th in race 1. They get a top 5. I tell you what, we'll be watching out for Maniti over the course of the winter and all the different endurance championships they'll be competing in here. Live on RaceSpotTV, you can see some track limits being pushed by all the drivers as well. And something we should just note here, Lewis, is if you push them just that little bit too much, you incur the wrath of the iRacing stewards. Race control will give you a time penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be careful. You've just got to respect it. You know, you've got to respect the track. You've got to respect every racetrack that we go to, that we've visited across the season. There is a fine line between what's okay and what's not. And we all know that. And trust me, these drivers know exactly how far they can get over every single corner without picking up a 1x, without picking up a slowdown, everything like that. And once again, off he goes. Back with the head banging. Loves it.
It's a cat jam, I tell you what.
It is cat jam, absolutely.
I'm just hoping we get to talk to Brienne at the end of the race. I don't think we've talked to him over the course of the season so far, Lewis. And I just want to ask, are you listening to music or not?
Yeah, I kind of... I mean, you could say yes, he's, regardless, either way, because he's listening to the sound of a Lamborghini powered around the Nürburgring sprint strecker. But, I mean, I do know a few people that drive with music. I couldn't drive competitively with music. You know what I mean?
I think it depends on what type of music you're listening to as well. I'm not going to say I've never raced with music, but usually I'd race with some pretty aggressive music. You turn off, no lyrics. You need some instrumental kind of a thing. So otherwise you start singing and I just get distracted.
Look for the, what the cool kids would say, the dank drum and bass. I am clearly not a cool kid. But no, I mean, yeah, there's a time and a place. I mean, for me, I've always said this before, I don't like a race engineer, I don't like anything, don't like music. All I want is all the data off. I want to be a part of the car, I want to focus exactly on what I'm doing. And right now, the two Apex cars seems to be very much nose to tail, maybe potentially costing each other time, but they don't want to switch around because, well, for one, why would you? And for two, it's going to allow Dane Warren to be really a part of the mix.
Look at how he's sitting right now. You couldn't tell he's in a championship fight, that's for sure.
Yeah, very comfortable. Now, I didn't quite catch the Supercars E-Series, by the way, because it got pulled from YouTube, but it is back on there now, so I will go and watch it after this, to be honest. But I did see, at least as far as I could catch, do they put a like the banner thing?
Oh, yes.
For the team. They put it up between them, don't they?
Oh, well, they know what sponsors want. They know that sponsors...
Yeah, exactly. the big background. Off you go, mate.
Well, I tell you what, Dane Warren has not completely forgotten that sponsors are important. He's slapped a VRS sticker into what is definitely not a VRS Direct Force Pro, that is for sure. I'll just tell you that. This train, by the way, has really closed on up Now 3/10 between Brienne to De Jong. I'm not sure if De Jong made a mistake the last time around because he broke into the 126s for the first time in today's action. 13 minutes into the race, 4 cars separated by 9/10 of a second.
It's tight. This is where it's looking at, again, it's looking a little bit more positive for the 93 in the sense that the train's coming back together again, but you need to take advantage when the train is together to actually start making some progress. The problem with the Porsches is once they depart this corner here, they just don't have the straight line speed to grab either the 99, 98 or 91. Also, you can see that in the background, Thomas Tattler and Tim Matska going side by side out of the final corner as Tattler is charging forward to the inside on that run into turn 1. Going to try and commit it on the brakes and pass the big green machine. The 78 around the outside. Is the move going to be completed? The answer to that question, no.
It's 2 big boys side by side, that is for sure. Through the Mercedes-Benz arena, can that AMG GT3 hold on as Vendaval and Kawanda scrapping it out for the final points-paying position? Maniti just a nose in front, but Tattler sends it to the inside as they come out of the arena and down in towards the shortcut. Jimmy Antunes looking to try and maybe make it happen. He touches the back of that Kova machine, just about hanging on to it as Thomas Tattler, and he gets himself into 6th position.
Yeah, the contact in the rear actually helped him pass. That was, I mean, Tat was some proper touring car stuff right there. I mean, great racing between them. Very, very exciting. Matska might be a little bit, feel a bit hard done by in the sense, but either way, Antunes just getting into the rear, as you see, on Thomas Tattler. Light, but in that kind of section of the racetrack, light is all you need. You don't need much more than that, as once again, all of the racing remains so tight. We've got some trains appearing. It is hard to pass, though, when you're in a train. Normally, anyway, it's hard to pass because the car ahead of you has slipstream, whereas the car ahead of you got slipstream. So you all kind of just run around at the same sort of speed, and it's just not really enough.
Into turn 1, 10 minutes away from the pit stop window opening, and these drivers getting out of the car for the final time this season, and Tunes a little bit deep under the brakes, and don't know if Jack Cedric maybe tried to make something happen, and that's why the pink BMW just went a bit deep and trying to cover off the Inex Ferrari. Left side of the screen, by the way, you can see some of the big movers in today's race. Unfortunate for Louis Nager, who in that Urano HKM machine got a bit sideways through the shortcut on lap number 1 and dropped all the way to the tail end of the top 10, but some big moves being made by the likes of Ascari Rene, now up into that top 5 for Core Sim Racing in that 32 car. Of course, Core Sim Racing are SCO Sprint Challenge champions in the GT4, Pascal Stix and Oscar Mangan, the driver duo there. Also up 8 positions, Hendrik Kroes in that Biela Racing Team car, and I tell you what, was kind of expecting a bit more from Biela Racing Team in the course of the season, Lewis. They are very experienced competitors in the GT3 car here on the iRacing service. Hasn't gone their way. They've had some technical issues, they've had some driver absences, all sorts of things conspiring against them. At least we'll see that 45 challenging, I think, for a top 10 to close things off.
Yeah, it's not been a great season from them, must be said. Sorry, the lead is really close right now. Whoa, I only just caught that out of the corner of my eye. Big slipstream across one side, and here comes Maxime Brienne down the inside of Mitchell de Jong at turn 1. This is the move. Is it going to be enough, though? It's tight between them into the arena section. I think de Jong's going to hang on just about, but it's as close as you like, and the 2 Apex cars come together.
Brienne tried to cover off Zach Campbell. I don't think that was on. Does Dane Warren take full advantage? Campbell still a nose inside of Brienne. The status quo remains. Warren gets the run down into the shortcut. Can he steal 3rd position away from that 99 car? No, there's contact. Zach Campbell gets sent off into the marbles. He hangs on once more. Some great car control. Dane Warren into 3rd.
Yeah, you saw obviously that instant coming down into the shortcut, and read into it what you will, but either way, for Dane Warren is up a position. That's what happens when you got 2 drivers racing from literally the other side of the planet to each other. Fantastic they're able to even do it in the first place, to be perfectly honest. And right now, Warren up onto the podium, and that could be important. Of course, it's not there for the championship yet. They need to make up 2 more positions, including getting past their main championship rivals. Oh, big snap there from Campbell as well, departing that chicane. Again, fantastic car control from Campbell, which obviously we'd expect. And once again, Maxime Brienne back in the slipstream, back ready to try and challenge for the race lead down to turn one. Don't think he's quite close enough.
No, he is. He's close enough. He's going for it once more. The Frenchman to the inside, trying to get around Mitchell de Jong. This is championship on the line. De Jong, more contact between Coanda and Apex. De Jong will hold on. It is not done, though. Here comes Dane Warren, trying to take full advantage of all this banging and bumping. To the tail end of Maxime Briant he goes, and he might try and get the run into the shortcut once more.
Oh God, if your heart's not racing now, I don't know what will make it race. This is a championship fight with a team that wants to grab their first race win of the season, a team that's been denied a couple of times, taking on the team that's been the dominant factor of the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Masters. They have been absolutely on it all season. It's that championship fight between the 91 and the 93, just 3 points separating them. Mitchell de Jong is pushing as hard as he can, and you know Dane Warren is doing the same. You know Maxime Briant is doing the same. You know Zach Campbell is doing the same. It is so intense. I feel for those that are outside of the car right now, because let's be honest, you've got Charlie Collins, you've got Josh Rogers sat there watching this. Their hearts are absolutely through the roof.
De Jong, half a second. I think this time he will be far enough in front, but he is weaving himself back and forth. Is Warren close enough to send it down the inside of Briant? No, he's not. Status quo will remain between the top 4. All of this fighting has brought in that train of cars 5th on back. It's 5th through 11th, separated by just 2 and a bit seconds that have closed in. Now 1.7 between Zach Campbell and Oscar Rene. The more they fight, the more that gap will close. I don't think Coanda or Apex wants to see that one happen. Dane Warren's putting himself in a good position. If Briant can get on past de Jong, we should say this, Lewis. It's still whoever finishes in front here wins the championship. 2nd and 3rd, the gap between that and the championship is 4 points. The gap coming into this race, well, it was 3 points.
Yeah, it's a very, very tight margin indeed. And this is the thing, is that as much as all well and good, Dane Warren getting into this position, maybe getting up in the second, what it does mean is then the pressure is on Charlie Collins to get past Josh Rogers. And I mean, again, these kind of scenarios, you have to ask yourself, how much do I want to win this championship? And I know it sounds silly, because obviously it's like, well, yeah, I really want to win the championship. But when you're in a title fight, when you're close, when you think that you're up against the impossible, defending for an entire race, attacking for an entire race, making up 10 positions in 5 laps or whatever it is, you ask yourself, okay, this is impossible. This is near impossible. But how much do I want this championship? Do I really, really want it? Yeah, I do. You can do it. You can absolutely do it. If you put your mind to it, it is achievable. And right now, that's what Dane Warren and Charlie Collins will be telling themselves. How much do we want to win this? Because we can. They are in position that they can absolutely take it. We've just got to find that little bit more, that little bit extra. They've got to find their way past one Lamborghini. I mean, to be fair to them, they were gifted the position on Zach Campbell, courtesy of the contact between Maxime Briant and Zach Campbell after the issues with de Jong. But de Jong's pace seems to be going up and down like some really inconsistent stock. It's just up, it's down, it's all over the place. It seems to have it about measured at the moment, but who knows what will happen in a couple of laps' time. All I know is that we're only a few minutes away from that pit window opening.
And you know what? You said, how much do you want to win the championship? The other side of the coin is, how much do you not want to lose the championship by putting yourself in a compromising position, making some sort of contact, and in effect robbing yourself of the chance of even fighting for it. Warren is in a sandwich right now. It's an Apex Racing team bread as Tim Matska gets on past Tumas Tatalu, who's had a slowdown penalty. Yeah, slowdown penalty for the Kova car. That drops it out of the top 10, or just out of the top 10, at least for the time being. Some technical issues there. I think that's Lewis Najner blinking in and out of existence. And that makes things very close, I think, potentially for 3rd in the championship. Here we go, though. Maxime Briant is really holding up Dane Warren. Gap has started to open up front. I don't think the Australian is going to be too patient here.
No, needs to do it. Can't be too patient here. That's exactly it. Like, needs to just get on with it right now. And I mean, obviously easier said than done. To pass drivers of this level is incredibly difficult in itself, especially when you don't The last thing you want to do is you don't want to go for a move, it not pay off, and then you lose a position to Zach Campbell as well. But not only that, but you lose time and you give De Jong the lead comfortably. You leave it on a plate. Whereas right now, the pressure's still on De Jong. You know, there's still half a second between them. I mean, you could wait out to the pit window and then dive in early. I will suspect that De Jong and Warren will be in very early in the pit window sequence to hand over to Charlie Collins. It's no disrespect to their pace. It's not what this is about. It's about track position, because I'm getting the vibe that Warren will come in to gain some track position, to get some clean air and to try and get past Brienne. And De Jong in that 91, they will know that. And so how do you cover off the car behind? Do exactly what they do. Just come straight in. Just follow them in, even though you're ahead.
Now, I know what you mean. As here comes Kieran Harrison looking to the inside of Tuomas Tattila. Mercedes, can he get the job done under the brakes? No. Door shut by Tuomas Tattila on the run down into turn 1. Lewis Najner is now out of the top 10. -8 for him on the day. We are 1 lap away from the pit stop window. Cars that are coming across the line right now will be able to dive in the next time around. These cars will have to stay out there that 1 lap longer. Zach Campbell all over the rear end of Dane Warren.
It's tight. It's a pressure cooker, this one. The 4 of them still separated by absolutely nothing. And let's be honest, what a perfect way to be ending the season here. 60 seconds and the pit window will open. The final one of the season. These will be their final few laps of their entire championship run before they hand it off to their teammate and say, well, I hope you can do it, because, well, let's see how it'll unfold for the next half an hour. And like I say, at this point, you kind of feel a little bit deflated. You're coming up to your final couple of laps. Once you're in, once you're out of the car, you're like, right, well, that's it. That's my race done. But the race isn't done. You've got to sit there. You're sidelined at that point. You have to watch it unfold, wait for it to happen. It's a hard task. Even that, I mean, I've had it before where it's like, all I want to do, I want to leave the room. You've got to support your teammate, but I'm like, I've got to go. I can't be here right now.
And imagine this, Lewis. Imagine we get an Apex Racing 1-2. And imagine it's the 91 in 3rd, the 93 in 4th. They'd be tied on points. We'd have to go to the tiebreaker.
What is the tiebreaker? It's race wins, I believe, which they're 3 for 3.
Yep.
So then it will go down
to second places.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see that race control.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to know what the situation is. We'd have to go and take a look at that, to be completely honest. I'm hoping that we don't have that situation, because I want to know who wins as we cross the line. Pit window is open. Do they come down this time around then?
I think Dane Warren has to.
He's talking on the radio, I can tell you that. I'm taking a look at the webcam feed right now. He was just saying something to Charlie Collins. Does Warren blink? Does Warren come in? Brienne's going to come in. Warren follows him down. That is brave. That is interesting. The 91, the 99, they'll stay out there. Brienne and Warren down to pit road.
Boom. I mean, that was late as you like. They're allowed to run over the that red and white marking. We said it earlier. They're allowed to do it. I mean, but that is so easy. What it's easy to do there is not obviously, you know, just mess up coming into pit. It's easy to lock up a little bit and go straight on and miss the pit entry. Now do they find anything to gamble on? I don't think they can. But still, they're going to come out. The issue is they're going to come out potentially behind the Lamborghini of Apex again, which is not ideal.
It will be Kevin Ellis, though, the pole position winner behind the wheel of that 98 car. So it could be worse in terms of outright pace. I guess the question really is, who will win the race off a pit lane? Will either of them get a better run in terms of entering into their pit box and nailing the way they get in? No, there is no switch around. It will be Brienne, who is replaced by Kevin Ellis Jr., Warren replaced by Charlie Collins. 33 minutes left in the season, and I told you it was going to come down to the very final lap in the checkered flag. We are in for a treat. Now we wait and see what the lap time is going to be for the 98 and the 93.
Surely they're coming into the pit lane, the 91 and the 99 though. Surely they're coming into the pit lane straight away. Boom, there you go. As expected. Oh, the 99 does not though. The 99's taking a bit of a gamble here and thinking, I'd better pacing them anyway. I'll just keep doing it. Thank you very much.
Well, if you're not going to undercut, you might as well try the overcut. So do not dislike the strategy from Zach Campbell in that 99 car. These will be his final competitive laps for the Apex Racing team. His final race weekend, and he is looking to take victory here in the VRS SCO Sprint Masters. Out gets Mitchell de Jong. In steps Joshua Rogers, your world champion. What can he do now as we wait and see where Kevin Ellis, where Charlie Collins will end up as they come through the final corner. 32 minutes left on the clock. These three embroiled in a fight all the way to the pit stop sequence. They'll be embroiled in a fight out of the pit lane as well. Rogers rolling himself off a pit road. He is clear down into the race lead. Cold tires though. He's got some work to do to keep Kevin Ellis right behind.
This is good though from Josh Rogers. That is a fairly comfortable lead. Obviously it will come down a little bit as things are warming up, including the driver himself. And realistically, I'd suspect the gap might come down a little bit, but this is Rogers in a good spot right now. Collins needs to get by right now. There can't be much more waiting around, and the issue with that is you've had your teammate Dane Warren sat behind trying to pass for the best part of the last half an hour, and there was no move that actually worked out. This time for Collins, you've got to do it almost instantly, and how do you do so? It's an almost impossible task, but again, ask yourself the question, how much do you want it?
Through Warsteiner, these cars work. Gap between Rogers and Ellis. 1 full second, half a second further back. Campbell is still out there on the track. Campbell has extended this one. He's going to go until the very end of the window, I'd say now, Lewis. And I tell you what, I said it. I think that's the strategy he had to play, given how all things went.
We'll keep our eyes on the lap times. I mean, for Campbell, of course, like I say, I mean, two things at play. Number one, enjoying the last few laps for the team, of course. That's a big deal in itself, and just wanting to enjoy where he's at, etc. All well and good. But then also, you know, might as well try and experiment with something on the strategy. If you repeat the same as everyone else, well, you're going to come up behind them. So why not try something a little bit different? I will say, Charlie Collins' last lap, a 25.8. Zach Campbell's last lap, a 25.8. Slightly slower in the 8 spectrum, but still an 8 nonetheless.
Not coming in, a side-by-side right behind. Maniti and Core. Matska slips it down the inside of Ascari Rene and punches his ticket to the top 5. Here comes, though, the Ferrari grunting itself down that main straightaway. Will pop himself to the outside as they dive their way downhill braking zone, relying slightly on that ABS to get you stopped. Maniti very slightly wide. Rene with the over-under, but Maniti has the inside into the arena section. Maniti holds on to the position.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. A great battle between them. The big green machine proving to be a bit too big for the Ferrari to muster as we are into that final half hour of the season and the final few moments on Arch competition. Bila Racing, Euronics, and that 45, they are in the pit lane as well, ticking off their final stops of the season. Another 4 minutes left to go in the pit window, and again, for some of these, their final lap of the season, and I say just ticking them off. For some of them that have just got behind the wheel, they are going fully on the attack, I will say. Unfortunately for Charlie Collins, not able to get through at the moment. Josh Rogers has just done a 25.7, which is slightly faster, half a tenth faster than Zach Campbell.
It might come down to pit stop execution here for Zach Campbell. Still out there on the track. You can see mounts the curve as he enters that final Coca-Cola curve. That's the fastest way. Maximize your entry to the corner. I think Campbell will be in, if not next time around. He might actually get 2 more laps under his belt as Core Sim Racing in their Ferrari down onto pit lane. Ascari Rene says, goodbye to the SCO season. We'll hand that one over to Carl Jansen in the 32. Vendaval and Spencer Kostakowicz down onto pit road as well. Dakota Fripp, who was very quick in race number 1, should get behind the wheel there. Kevin Ellis is 1 full second behind Josh Rogers. This is kind of what I expected. If Warren wasn't able to get on past in the early stages, it meant that Ellis Jr. would be in front of Collins. These cars starting to lose track of the 91.
Which is a concern. But again, it is not necessarily done yet. The fact that the gap's gone out a little bit, we can see it go out, we can see it come back down. It can go both ways, and it's still hovering around the 1 second mark between the 98 and the 91. So most certainly not done. And in fact, speaking of which, fastest lap of the race to Kevin Ellis Jr. at 25.6. So showing that there is still plenty of pace in that Lamborghini.
Runs a bit wide through turn number 1, though. Not the ideal.
Yep.
Yeah, not the ideal way to continue on. As does Campbell come in? No, he's got 2 minutes left on the clock. He will run to the very end of the pit stop window. The cars behind him will also be able to do the same. But I think Maniti Racing has... Nope, they're not blinked. They are... It's Inex Racing who's actually come down onto the pit road. Or has that been a slowdown? No, that's a slowdown for Maniti.
Oh, yeah, goodness. And quite a big one as well. They've dropped back into the clutches of Kova. And yeah, not great. VRS Commander and Urano Esports Huawei and Caution Racing. All these cars coming into the pit lane in the background. I think the 18 will also pit. There we go. It does indeed. Because for them, they were closing in on it being their final attempt, final call down to pit lane. For everyone else that stayed out, so for Apex down to the Lego Technic car, they will all be in at the end of this lap. And that gap looking like it's closing in a little bit. I don't know about you.
Oh, very definitely. Kevin doing a splendid job. Put it on pole. Briant lost the lead on lap number 1, but did a good job, I think, to just keep cool, keep calm, and run himself around that 91 car. And now, right on the tail, half a second separates these two cars. Rogers last time around a 9.67. Campbell an 8.25. Campbell might come in right into the middle of this pack, Lewis, as he has to come down to pit road this time around.
Yeah, diving in now, like I say, the leading this train in, that will be their final stop. So I remember something, obviously for Collins at the moment, sat behind and basically using the 98 to pull him along. And it was something that I remember from watching the Olympic Games. You know me, I like myself a bit of cycling. And it was in the women's road cycling race. It was something that the commentators and such said. They said to win a championship, to win a medal, you need to be prepared to lose it sometimes. And that's exactly what Charlie Collins needs to do right now. If he wants to win, if they want to win the championship right now, clearly they don't really have the pace to close down on the 91 and attack them of their own. Maybe they would do over the next 25 minutes, who knows. But right now, they need to be prepared to lose the championship by almost allowing the 98 to do what it's doing, to go after its own destiny, to try and fight for the win itself, because that might drop Josh Rogers into the clutches of Collins, and then the move is open. That's what it's about. It's about being patient, being calm right now. We'll see what happens with the 99, though.
Fluke's going to come out right alongside his teammate. Does he come out in front of the 93? He's going to send it into the braking zone, but on warm tires, Charlie Collins around the outside holds on to third. It was close for Fluke, but not close enough. Now, it is a 24-minute dash to the line. It is a dash to the championship here. And Joshua Rogers, Mitchell de Jong, they are in control.
Yeah, right now they are. Biela Racing and VRS SCO and Sim Sport in the 45 and 81. Lamborghini versus Mercedes, battling it out just a little bit further down for a couple of points down the order. This for, though, the quartet is back together. And let's be honest, for Apex Racing, they are taking the fight wholeheartedly to the VRS SCO and Sim Sport bunch, as they have done in the second half of this season. Since we came back from our little summer break, they have been firing on all cylinders. They haven't had the luck to match it, mind, but they have been quality on pace. They have really taken the fight to Coanda.
And I tell you what, I think it's been that summer break, I said it in the first triple header, really just allowed the teams to kind of reset and try some different things out, whether it was setup philosophy, driving standards, and the way that they were approaching the car itself. like you said, right off the bat, Apex Racing team, pole position from Monza in that second race. The 99 car probably should have taken victory if things had gone slightly differently, but Jamie Fluke, Zach Campbell in fourth right now. Zach Campbell has driven his final laps for the Apex Racing teams. He will be cheering on his teammate as they try and rob third position and a podium spot away from Charlie Collins, Dane Warren. That would be the championship effectively handed to the 91 car.
And hey, maybe even something more. Who knows what will happen if they get through, whether they can go on the attack. There's still 22 minutes, which is an age left in this championship season, in this race, and the gaps are still very, very tight. Fastest lap going the way of the VRS SCO car that's piloted by David Williams a little bit further down the order, so we know there's a bit more pace out on circuit should they go and seek it. But obviously some of these cars might be looking after their tyres to make sure they've got it in their hands at the end of the race. I will say Charlie Collins looks a little bit pressured from Jamie Fluke, maybe struggling to get into the rhythm of this race. If Fluke was to get by, it's not championship over, but again, it's not looking so good.
I think if Fluke gets by, it is effectively championship over.
As near as makes no difference, yeah.
I mean, yeah, if Collins can't hold on to third, if he can't get on past Kevin Ellis heading into the final 10 minutes, you have to think Rogers is going to be looking impervious, but Kevin Ellis Jr. is coming on strong. Gap now, 0.3 of a second. That Lamborghini is well and truly charging.
Yeah, firing absolutely brilliantly right now as Apex are trying to get through. And that's the thing, is that should Jamie Fluke be past, should Jamie Fluke get past Charlie Collins, rather, this is why it's not over. Because the pressure that Rogers is under, I mean, you know that Fluke will apply the same pressure to Rogers, that Ellis will continue to apply that pressure, that realistically it still isn't over. It's not over until the checker flag. Yes, boring saying, we've heard it time and time again, but it is true. You don't know how these things are going to unfold. I mean, it could be anything. It could be contact into the final chicane between them, and then boom, the door is open for the 93 to charge through and pick up a couple of freebies. We just do not know. The only thing we do know is that this is an awful lot of pressure on 4 drivers, absolutely on the limit.
It's good that they're some of the best in sim racing, and I must say it's commendable that Kevin Ellis has managed to compete in 2 completely different forms of discipline of racing, 2 different disciplines of racing, I should say. You know, qualifying in the Rallycross World Championship, that is a very strong achievement, but to do it while also competing here in this SCO Sprint Masters, Lewis, I mean, GT3 and Rallycross, they have almost nothing in common. Is the move coming this time around? Kevin Ellis looks to the inside for the race lead, for the championship on the line as well. Kevin Ellis runs Rogers slightly wide, and Kevin Ellis to the point of the field.
Boom, there we go. Apex Racing takes over the front, and things are starting to look a little bit brighter for the 93. Straight down the inside, though. Rogers understands the pressure, trying to get it before they exit the Mercedes Arena section. The answer to the question is no. Run out wide, and this will be a defensive line from the Lamborghini. You know who might pounce on that? Charlie Collins, because to the outside through the shortcut, it's not a line that ever really works, and there is going to be side-by-side between the championship contenders.
Collins slots back into line, though, nothing doing for the time being. It is now Apex Racing 1, VRS Coanda 2nd and 3rd, and Apex Racing in 4th. Ellis cutting off the draft, ducking and diving down this back straightaway. 20 minutes left on the clock. 20 minutes left in the championship, and it comes down to this. Rogers a little bit too far behind, but he's going to set up out of the chicane. He's going to set up into turn number 1.
Wow, the interviews post-race here are going to be absolutely enthralling. Oh! Collins to the inside. Oh, there's near contact between the teammates, and we've seen that a couple of times this season. It was one of those factors that we noted in the early stages of the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Series, both Challenge and Masters, that contact between teammates had happened a few times, and here comes Collins again to the inside at T1 on Rogers, able to make it stick. The answer to the question is no, not quite yet. And guess who's there knocking at the door? It's Jamie Fluke.
He sends it, forces Collins to go very, very wide and very deep into the corner. The status quo remains. Fluke hasn't given this one up yet. This is for the championship, 2nd and 3rd position, fighting tooth and nail.
We are not going to have a voice left after this, mate. The next 18 minutes are going to be some of the most stressful on any of these shoulders. I think at the moment. The 98 just want to check out, wants to get away from this group. Let the championship contenders be. Let them battle. Let them do what they're doing. And I mean, this is absolutely intense. I mean, if there is something that will shape you as a driver, it is times like this, because there is never a more pertinent time to be absolutely perfect, to race on your very, very limit, to ascend to a higher level of driving than right here and right now.
Does Collins look flustered?
No, not really.
He looked exasperated for a moment, hand in the air, coming down that back straightaway. But you're right, not necessarily flustered. That's not the word I was trying to think. Exasperated. I think he knew his opportunity was there. Now has to do all that work over again. Rogers in the draft of Kevin Ellis Jr., but I think he's just a little bit too far behind this time around. It's 6/10 between Kevin Ellis, who is checking out, and for third position, Jamie Fluke sends it down the inside.
And just see how close on defence Collins got to the rear end of Rogers, was basically giving a bit of Morse code to the rear end of his teammate and championship rival. Again, the move, just to give you a little bit extra pressure in this, the move between Collins getting through on Rogers, one overtake, that is $2,500. That is an expensive overtake.
Bragging rights as well. Let's be honest. I think the prize money's going to be nice.
It's worth the same amount. Yeah, exactly.
Especially when it's in a team like Coanda. So many strong drivers. They've been the class of the field here in the 2021 VRS SCO Sprint Masters. 6 victories shared between the 91 and the 93. Can they make it 7, or can Kevin Ellis Jr. run away? You can see they have pulled a 4-second advantage over that 32 car. Carl Janssen behind the wheel as Jarl Tien tries to chase him down with Antiohola right behind. Those bonga drums in 8th position. Daniel Pastor, Ricardo Rico for Urano and Arnage rounding out the top 10, but let's be honest, it is hard to look anywhere except up front right now, Lewis. These guys are putting on a show to round things out.
Yeah, whilst there are some excellent drives in the background, you can see their Arnage competition getting past Urano Esports and not completing the move. Whilst we've got some fantastic stuff, of course, we've got the title race to focus on, and it is as tense as it has ever been so far through the season. We are delivering, and hopefully we aren't going to have some sort of incident that ends in an anti-climax for this title race, because it's been fantastic so far. I want to keep this up until the checkered flag, please, because this is absolutely insane. And you kind of get the feeling that it's always one of those things where if Apex Racing take their first win, or take the win today, right, you kind of like, oh yeah, it had to be in the one where all that drama was happening for the championship, didn't it? Of course it did.
Yeah, no, I mean, and poor Kevin Ellis if he takes victory, because let's be honest, we're not going to be focusing on him across the line. I wish we could, but it's all about the title. I see Alex Simpson, Apex Racing Team Box, in our chat saying he's shaking like a leaf. I can't imagine how he's doing. Also can't imagine what Race Control is going through right now, Lewis.
I say everyone is staring. I mean, I'm staring on this My Heart's race, and I'm pretty sure everyone is watching this thinking, I don't know what is going to happen next. This is a high level of intensity. I think, to be honest, genuinely, probably the two of the calmest people about this whole scenario is probably Josh Rogers and Charlie Collins. To be honest, whilst they have a lot of pressure, they're the ones in control. They're the ones that have the ability to change this.
Oh!
And Jamie Fluke has the ability to adjust it even further. A big dive to the inside, potentially going to take third. Not yet, but has built a gap between the 91 and the 93.
Fluke knows he can play the party spoiler right now. He is going to do everything he can to not just take a podium, but to have some fun here in the closing stages. I think we know Fluke, one of the nicest guys in sim racing. He's also not going to be too aggressive. He's going to calculate his moves. He's going to be picture perfect when it comes to executing them as well. I think we've got 10 laps to go right now, Lewis.
Yeah, not long indeed. Less than a quarter of an hour of the entire season. We've had 11 hours and 46 minutes of some of the best racing that you can catch in sim racing, in GT3s. It's been an excellent season from start to finish. It's all culminating in this championship fight in these final few laps. We do have a gap bridged between the two VRS Coanda cars. It's around a second between them. It's Jamie Fluke sat on the rear. Collins needs to be perfect over this final section of the racetrack. It can't be like it was in qualifying with a couple of mistakes costing him time. It needs to be perfect. He needs to launch his way back onto the rear end of Josh Rogers, but not only that, pull a little bit clear of Jamie Fluke, who's sat in the slipstream. As we ride on board with Rogers, you can see backwards to Collins, you can see forwards to Kevin Ellis Jr. and the gap that has appeared. Is there a dive from the Lamborghini in the background? No, not this time. Jamie Fluke's going to settle for 4th at the moment.
The incredible thing is, Lewis, all of this fighting, they've been even more at it in the second portion of the race. They still managed to extend the gap to the cars behind them. I mean, yes, Carl Janssen has picked up the pace very slightly in the last couple of laps, but these guys, there's a reason why Coanda and Apex are two of the biggest names in sim racing. They have got the strongest drivers, they've got the best behind the scenes work when it comes to building their setups, getting their drivers prepared for every single event. It's been a shame that Apex hasn't necessarily had the overall season that we would have hoped, but the second half, you mentioned it, it has been a showcase for the Apex Racing team.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, a thought of what's to come. It's not as if Apex are a brand new team to sim racing. They've been in it and at the top for a long, long time, and they are battling it out with one of, if not arguably, the biggest team in sim racing right now. VRS Coanda Sim Sports. There aren't many teams that you would even label anywhere near the same category as the Titan outfit that they are. I mean, they hold the best drivers in sim racing, and they understand sim racing better than most, and with that, why they always end up hoovering up championships left, right and centre, trying to find some new challenges. Was there a little tap of the brake?
There is. The 93 car is going to release Jamie Fluke into 3rd. I think Charlie Collins knows they need to close that gap to Rogers in front. It is now almost a full second between 2nd and 3rd positions. What can Jamie Fluke do to spoil the party? And of course, Lewis, if Fluke gets past Rogers, we are going to a tiebreaker.
Again, what did I say a little bit earlier? To win the championship, you have to be prepared to lose it. Charlie Collins there, that shows me that is a team that is, they're prepared to lose the championship in order to win it. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I respect that. I'm terrified by that prospect, but I do respect that. It shows, I mean, they maybe didn't have the confidence that they could have attacked Rogers themselves, but realistically they would have sat there. They're just removing the risk of Fluke on the rear end. They know the pace that Fluke has. The gap's big though. The gap is big. And you're basically saying, yeah, I want to win this championship. Can this not unknown quantity, can this completely different team, completely different car, completely different, can you win it for me? It's not quite the same level, but you get where I'm coming from.
Oh, absolutely. I know exactly what you are saying right now. 10 minutes left in this season. It is going to come down to the wire. Lewis said it, it might not be the 93 that gets it done on track. It might be Jamie Fluke handing an assist to Dane Warren and Charlie Collins if he can close up, if he can get on past Josh Rogers and Mitchell DeYoung. Kevin Ellis is looking very comfortable for the race lead at this point in time. Antiohola has gotten on past Jarl Tien for 6th spot. I think in effect that secures 3rd place in the championship for Kova here today.
Yeah, I think, I mean, they're fairly secure now. I mean, I don't know if you want to try and go through and figure out what it would go to, because obviously race wins. I think 2nd places.
Oh, Lewis, we have drama here. You know why the 99 car is being waved on through. The 93 car is going to get a 5-second time penalty come the end of this race. That hands the championship on a platter to Joshua Rogers, to Mitchell DeYoung.
What for? What do they do? Oh, it's been contact. Right.
They have exceeded the incident limit for the race. They will get that 5-second time penalty. Thank you to Race Control for keeping us up to date. There is no tiebreaker on the line. It will now be an almost Sunday drive for Rogers, for DeYoung to the title.
Wow. That is a horrible way to lose it. That is a shame. I mean, the rules are the rules. I mean, around here, the instant points are something that we do kind of see them breach. It's so easy to do. around this track. It's kind of one of those things that we see them pick up every now and then, obviously through the chicane and on the exit of the Mercedes Arena section. Such a shame, though, to be picked up in that manner. But again, it is what it is, and unfortunately for them, basically the only ones that they can blame in that scenario is realistically themselves, which is hard to say, but it is true.
I speculate that it wasn't just off tracks, though. I think there was a
couple of 4Xs.
Yeah, I think there's a number of door-to-door contacts that have led them to that one. So I was surprised to see the brake lights fly on, and really I must say thank you to Dominic Engel for giving us that bit of information. We don't get the incident counts on our end. We have to wait for the race control guys to let us know, and that explains a lot. We knew it would be a tall order given where the 93 car started in today's race. They made their way up into the top 3. But ultimately, like you said, such a disappointing way to lose the championship. 3 victories on the season, the only team to sweep a race weekend. That happened at Monza, where of course we saw drama to the line with that 98 Apex Racing Team car. 99 Apex Racing Team car, I should say. They have ultimately shown, Lewis, even if they're not champions coming out of this race, they have shown why Coanda signed them up over the past 12 months. They have shown heading to another World Championship campaign, they may be 2 names to keep our eyes on.
As much as, you know, I'm trying to keep it alive a bit, but it's as near it's kind of done. Kind of. And the reason why I say kind of is because it's not necessarily done just yet. It'll be a 5-second time penalty to Collins, which, as long as you can pull out another couple of tenths on Janssen behind, would give him still 4th position. And you brought up the point earlier that should Fluke get by Rogers, it goes to countback. Maybe they know more on the countback. They were just like, right, get on with it. Go on, attack him. Get past. We'll go on countback and we'll see what happens, because that could be the deciding factor is countback still. It still could be. You're
right. No, we may be calling this prematurely. It would be 3 points. Okay, yes, it would be 3 points. The problem is the gap to Janssen is going back and forth, fluctuating between 4.8 to now 5.3 seconds. So if Janssen turns the wick up, if Collins gets this time penalty and drops behind Janssen, it's done. It's dusted. There's nothing that can happen there.
Yeah.
The gap is coming down marginally, and I say marginally because last time around it opened up by about 0.5 of a second. So 6 minutes left on the clock. You'd be hard-pressed to think that Collins and Warren are still in a position to get this one done, but there is still that possibility, however remote it is.
Yeah, like I say, the gap needs to be more than 5 seconds to Janssen to that call.
It's ballooned up now. It's 5.7 seconds.
There we go. The thing is, obviously it was going to chop and change across the lap. It needs to, regardless, it needs to be above 5 seconds. Look how tight that is. I mean, if it were to switch around, I mean, you're talking about tenths to separate a championship, not points, not nothing. And again, we'd have to calculate the count back as well, which, I mean, we haven't had the foresight to go and do because we didn't expect it to come down this close. We should have done. But either way, it's going to be a tight run into the line. I mean, regardless, over a season like this, if they were to finish like this, to have 3 points decide the championship is a painfully small margin.
They've been the class of the field. They effectively were the only 2 teams left standing, not just here, but last time out at the Red Bull Ring as well. That was the advantage that they enjoyed given their consistency on the season. On board with Kevin Ellis Jr. Let's pay his dues. Let's give him some attention here, Lewis, because like we said, across the line, it's not going to be too relevant that Ellis Jr. is likely to take the checker flag. It will be about the championship. Really looking forward to seeing what Ellis Jr. can do now. Ooh, as there's a pass for 5th. I think that's going to balloon that gap up just that little bit more, as Jamie Fluke is now 1.5 seconds off the pace of Josh Rogers, so really is making it difficult, as now even further, almost 2 seconds for a time. Really interested to see what Kevin's going to do in this upcoming season of the Rallycross World Championship. A new endeavor for him. He's got some great teammates to support him along the way.
Yeah, Fluke had a couple of issues in the final corner, and that battle between Antti Ahola and Janssen is so so tight at the moment between fifth. Look at what is separating them. Absolutely nothing, and you can definitely see that there. The position switch has come a couple of times through the arena section, and Antiola has got up into fifth position. But of course, look at the Inex car of Jarl Tyen getting to the inside of Janssen and nearly making that one stick. The drive off from the Corsim Racing Ferrari, though, is just about enough onto the back straight, running through Ad Van Bogen up towards the NGK chicane, and they're going to hang on to sixth position. Ferraris, though, when we started the season, were looking pretty bad, and now looking all right.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think they were bad, maybe just struggling a little bit in terms of corner performance.
I think the Inex one was pretty bad at Barcelona in the sense that it was upside down.
Yeah, no, you never want to be upside down, but I think typical state for Jack, unfortunately. Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Jack. I just had to throw that in. A nice little Jack flip there. You can see the gap between Fluke and Rogers has indeed grown just a little bit more now, 1.3, as they'll start what should be 3 laps to go for them at this point in time. Rogers looking comfortable to take the championship, but can never relax. I do wonder now how many incidents Rogers has got, because it could all still be blown wide open here.
I'd still find it unlikely the 91 is anywhere near those limits. And you know what they're like. This is the experience. This is the thing, is that if you're going to take anyone on in a championship, you don't want it to be Rogers and De Jong. And that's why, regardless of whether it's first in the championship or second in the championship, we must give an enormous round of applause to the 93 to have made it this close throughout the season. It shows the level of talent that Dane Warren and Charlie Collins has, and the fact that they're stars of the future in a very genuine sense, that they're going to be around for a very long time. I mean, so is Rogers, don't get me wrong, going to be around for a very long time. It's not as if they're coming to the end of their career, not by a long shot. The joy of sim racing is that age isn't really a quantity in sim racing. You can be fast at the age of 50, and I know that because I know plenty of fast 50, 60 year olds, and I'm not even joking, plenty that are more than capable of battling at high levels. I'm sure we all know someone of that age, especially in the old classic thing of sim racing. You're all driving around, you only know them by their name, and you find out afterwards you've raced them for 3 years, and you're like, you're 55 years old. What?
I do like that, at least on iRacing, as compared to some other platforms, you use your full name. It's not a gamer tag. It's not a nickname. It is you. That's all I can really say. And I like you said, Rogers is going to be around. I mean, he's old. He's 21 years old. In sim racing terms, that's very, very old. But that Coanda team house goes from strength to strength, and whether it's Collins, whether it's Warren, whether it's Rogers, whether it's Kronka, whether it's De Jong, I could go on and on here, the list of drivers that Coanda Simsport has. And by the way, they have teased some new additions to their squad coming up as well. Talking of Youngblood, they of course have a Coanda junior team filled with 13 and 14-year-old Lewis. That makes me feel very old all the time.
Yeah, but we're at this crossing point of sim racing where we're starting to get plenty of 14 and 15-year-olds that are plenty fast enough, and that is across the sim racing stratosphere. At the moment, though, final lap of this race. Collins has got by. Slow down penalty for the Lamborghini, I think. Oh no, is that right?
No, you're right, yes.
Must be, yeah.
It's still going to be podium for Jamie Fluke, though. 5 seconds added to the time then of the 93 car. We're going to have a busy post-race show. Final lap of the season. It comes down all the way to the wire. It will be Kevin Ellis trying to fend off Josh Rogers. That gap, 1 full second. I think the Lamborghini has it covered.
It's done as far as I'm concerned. That will be pretty much it, unless there's a mistake in the final section of the racetrack. It is done for them. It's done for Rogers in the championship. Bit of an anti-climax in that sense, considering how tense it was, but I'm sure there'll be some deep breaths taken across the VRS SCO paddock, because we can all have one breather. We can enjoy the very last lap of this 12-hour season that has been intense from the very start to the very end. And of course, what a fantastic run it's been, and what a championship it is for this team. Not done yet, mind, still a couple of corners, but what a championship, and what a worthy champion.
It has been several years since we've had major GT3 or even GT racing on the iRacing platform. It was the VRS GT World Championship. Now it's the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Masters. 12 hours of action, 12 individual sprints, but at the end of the day, it is the 2-time world champion Joshua Rogers paired with Mitchell de Jong. They come across the line. They are the VRS SCO Sprint Masters champions in 2021. It is
Fantastic.
Kevin Ellis Jr. across the line, but all eyes focused on the Commander pairing that takes the win. Heartbreak at the closing stages for Charlie Collins, for Dane Warren, but we know that Lewis, they'll be back. They'll be back with a vengeance.
Yeah, I mean, look, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and in these kind of things, that is absolutely correct. They may not have won the championship, but I think they did more than most thought they were going to. Coming into the season, we were like, it's a slam dunk Mitchell de Jong, Josh Rogers title. It was a Mitchell de Jong, Josh Rogers title. Wasn't a slam dunk though. That was tight, hard fought all the way up to the very last moment. And like I say, Warren and Collins can be very, very proud of that. They have given it their all. It's not been enough. And there will be plenty of times in the season that they can throw back to and be like, we didn't capitalise there, we didn't capitalise there. The issues at Austria, the issues at Zolder. It is what it is. That's racing. Those kind of things happen. They're second. They still have a decent amount of prize money, and they still are a worthy vice champion.
What a season. What fun we've had here up in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth. I'm so glad that we got the return of a GT Championship. Some new cars to the iRacing service as well. Cannot wait to see if we return in 2022 even bigger and even better. Second place on the day, it is championship though, to Joshua Rogers, to Mitchell de Jong. It is time for some very well-earned donuts. Let's see exactly how they get on here in this Porsche 911 GT3. Third place in the championship, I do think will go to the Kova guys, who showed some very impressive runs in the early stages. Did not really get the run in the middle part of the season that we would have been hoping, Lewis. They could have been right up there in the mix, given how we've seen them be throughout the course of this season. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, Kova's, well, the same with a lot of teams, is whilst they've had their flashes of greatness, look at Apex the second half of the season, there are plenty of teams that might think, we could have contended for the championship, had this, had that, had all of the other things. Again, it is what it is. You take those positives, but like I say, you roll with it as it comes. And at the moment, for the 91, they've done everything they needed to do. Didn't do any donuts though, so 0 out of 10. I think we should take the championship away.
Disqualify them from the weekend. That's what we should do. Let's go ahead then and take a look at these unofficial race results. And we say unofficial because we know for the very least there is a 5-second time penalty coming to that 93 machine. Kevin Ellis Jr. victorious to wrap up the season from pole to victory. Definitely not as easy as that sounds. Rogers and de Jong cross the line in second. They take the championship. They win by 1 solitary point. Charlie Collins will come across the line in third. He will drop to fourth, but what a season for the young Welshman and his teammate Dane Warren. Zach Campbell, Jamie Fluke finish on the podium. What a way for Campbell to wrap up his Apex Racing Team career as he goes on to bigger things. I shouldn't say bigger things, new things to say the very least.
Boom.
Sorry to the Apex Racing Team. I'm going to get a bit of stick for that one for sure. Antiohola and Tumas Tatala across the line in 5th position. They secure 3rd place in the championship. What a run from then. Kova always strong in their BMW M4. Sim Racing and Maniti, they finished 6th and 7th positions with Daniel Pastor and Maxime Ramstein dragging their way to the line. 7th, 8th, and 9th separated by just 1 second. Jarl Tien wraps up a up and down season for that Inex Ferrari. At least they're on all 4 wheels as they finish in the top 10 with Ricardo Rico, Tommy Oscar, Jeremy Boutaloop 11th, 12th, and 13th. Dakota Fripp and Luke Akita the final points paying positions. Phil Denez for BS Plus competition. He finishes then in 16th spot, just out of the point. Dylan Shrivens, Yannick Kiru, Daniel Ferguson, and Daniel Lafuente through the top 20. 23 starters whittled down to just 22 finishers. David Williams, Eric Goldner, after early race issues, come across the line 21st and 22nd, with Julian Sonnen in 23rd, our only retiree from the race. Of course, fastest lap did go to David Williams on lap 25, a 1:25.642. What a season, Lewis. I've had so much fun calling the action here with you, and we'll get to the post-race interviews in just a few moments' time, but I want to get some of your thoughts on what we saw here. Not just the Coanda dominance, but so many strong performances across the season. Of course, Altus victorious in Zolder, that race #1. We saw the RHG Juniors being strong on occasion as well. Really, I think there's lots of faces we should keep our eyes out for in the remaining portion of 2021.
Well, when it comes to dominant races, let's speak as races per se. If you were to look over the season, the most dominant races we've seen so far across the season, don't actually come from Coanda. And that's the interesting thing, because if you compare for example, the Logitech Altus Esports win at Zolder or the BS competition win at Austria, I'd say those ones were more dominant than what we've seen out of Coanda. It just so happens to be that they've been the most consistent across the season. They've been there or thereabouts. When they've not won, they've been sat in 3rd or 4th. What I'm saying, though, is that across the season, whilst it seems like it's, especially if we look at the championship standing, it's very much VRS Coanda. The season has been very colourful at the top. We've seen 3 different brands win in the form of Porsche, in the form of BMW, and of course in the form of Lamborghini just then. We've seen multiple different teams, I think it's 5 different teams take victory across the season. It's been very colourful, it's been very competitive, and it's been absolutely brilliant from start to finish. All of the races have thrilled and entertained.
Let's take a look at the championship standings, provisional championship standings, before we head down into victory lane and to talk to our post-race interviewees. It was 1 point. 3 points coming into the weekend, 1 point coming out. 91 on top over the 93. Kova do secure that 3rd place, while Apex Racing will be pretty happy, I'm sure, with 4th and 5th positions. 1 point, Lewis. That, I think, illustrates just how much fun we had this season.
Yeah, it will, as far as my maths will go, it will go out to 4 points, but, it is what it is. I mean, whether it's 1 point or 4 points doesn't really matter. It's a painful margin, but like I say, it was so tight all the way to the end, and exactly what we wanted to see.
Let's then head down to victory lane, not for the race, but for the championship itself. Let's talk to the 91 car, and let's start with Joshua Rogers. Josh, I'm sure you guys are thrilled. It came all the way down to the wire then. Unfortunate that it was a time penalty that really cost the 93 car from being able to fight more. But you guys have had your ups and downs, but you were strong, you were consistent to wrap things up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just relieved, to be honest. First of all, massive thanks, obviously, to Mitchell for all his effort throughout the season. He's been an absolute tank, and pleasure to drive with him once again. But to be honest, I didn't realize they had a time penalty. We were definitely fighting there as if that wasn't the case, and it was going to be really, really close coming down on points. Obviously, I think it ended up being 1 point in the end. I knew that I needed to stay in front of Jamie, and that was stressful at the least of times. But yeah, honestly, I'm so relieved. I don't really have many words. But no, yeah. Also, obviously, massive congrats to the 93 car as well. They were relentless all season, and yeah, it's been a pleasure fighting with them, of course.
What's next now for you? Of course, you've got the rest of 2021 to watch on to see the newcomers to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. You'll be looking to defend your title in 2022. We're going to see you in action for some more special events. Of course, we've got some Petit Le Mans action in a couple of months' time. But what's next for you guys in the Coanda team house?
I mean, for me, ideally a little bit of rest would be nice, but no, obviously we jumping into Assetto Corsa in the coming weeks. I think Mitchell obviously has NASCAR as well. There's a lot of things going on here, but no, we're continuously racing, continuously pushing ourselves, and it's important to make sure we're always driving as well. Keep yourself sharp, and when series like this come up, it's important to be as strong as we can be.
Congratulations, Josh. Let's talk very quickly as well to your teammate Mitchell de Jong. And Mitchell, I mean, I've got to ask you first off the bat, I mean, you've had to balance your eNASCAR Coca-Cola responsibilities with this GT3 machine. By no means are they similar. I'm sure you've had to do a lot of adjusting between the two of them. How relieved are you in some ways to have managed to secure this title?
Yeah, I think that's the key word for sure, relieved. Big congrats to the 93 car. Both Charlie and Dane, they are incredibly fast and consistent, and they do everything right. So it's kind of sweet to be able to get the upper hand on them, but they are definitely as much deserving for the championship as I think, you know, Josh and everyone else behind the scenes put the effort in. So no, I'm so stoked with this. It was really nail biting at the end, and I was extremely worried after the first race that I didn't really get a good qualifying lap in. I thought I just basically threw it like that was it, and knew we had to kind of just go out and try to win the final race. Didn't do that, but I think we put on a good effort, and man, I'm so stoked right now. It's insane.
And talk to us about the rest of your year then. Of course, I don't think you're going to be competing in the Rallycross World Championship here in the rest of 2021. Full focus on you and the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series and the playoffs that are coming up very, very quickly.
Certainly. You know, even though we're skipping out on that championship this year, there's still plenty of racing to be done. Obviously, we have the playoffs for NASCAR, as you mentioned, and need to really do well in that. Hopefully, we can go for the championship. And of course, we have other special events and everything coming up too. So still plenty of racing to go.
Congratulations, guys. Thanks for joining us. Go off and celebrate in the Koana Team House. I have a feeling there's going to be a party later tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
So that was your championship winners, Joshua Rogers, Mitchell DeYoung. Let's now go and talk to the car waiting in victory lane. Let's go talk to Kevin Ellis Jr. and his teammate Maxime Briand. Let's start with you, Kevin. Race victory, unfortunately overshadowed, of course, by the fact that the championship was decided here at the very closing stages, but you've had a very impressive second half of the season. Not necessarily so easy for you guys in the first half of the campaign, but really pole position for you at Monza, and now to wrap things up here with a pole and a victory. You must be pretty happy with how you wrap things up.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it feels good to finally execute on that kind of result. You know, we came so close so many times, and for one reason or another, never quite got it done. I think Monza was definitely one that we came away kind of kicking ourselves a bit. So it feels really good, yeah, to execute, put it on pole, and then Maxime done a mega job on the first stint there to keep in the pack. And just, yeah, as soon as I got in the car at the second stint there, I knew the Lambo takes a little while to get the tyres fired up. So I just had to stick with Josh, which was really, really tough those first few laps. But once we kind of got 5-6 laps into the stint, the Porsche kind of dropped off a bit, and I knew if I could get in front, him and the other Koanda car would start kind of fighting for the championship, and that should allow us to get away, which it sort of did. It gave us a bit of breathing room, and it was just a case of managing the gap to the finish.
You've been a busy boy this summer. I mean, first you got this series, and of course a very different sort of a car, the Rallycross World Championship qualifiers, where you ended up finishing in second. How happy are you to have qualified now for a second World Championship? I'm sure the hard work is only just beginning, though. Got lots of teammates to help you out, though, as we go racing in just 1 month's time.
Yeah, this has been insane. The last kind of 2-3 months have just been absolutely mind-blowing. You know, I've only had like 2 days practice for Rallycross, and then I need to jump over to GT3s with 2 days practice, and you know, to kind of rock up and be able to perform like we have, it really feels good. You know, Rallycross, I wasn't really happy with P2. I wanted to win the championship, but you know, when it comes to the World Championship, we're going to have a couple more guys being able to help and get stuck in, and you know, the target's pretty clear. We saw what we've done last year. It's more of the same this year, hopefully.
Congratulations on the victory. Let's talk to your teammate Maxime Briand. And Max, first question I have for you is, what music do you listen to when you're driving? Because you always look like you're just having a super fun time when you're behind the wheel.
Nah, I don't know, when I'm focused I'm just doing this weird movement with my head. It was the same during my karting time, so yeah, it's just when I'm focused I'm just doing this weird movement, but no, I'm not listening to music.
Well, I know you're not necessarily the most experienced in the GT3 cars, and I think this was your first time really having to get to grips with the GT machine. How much fun did you have this season learning something new, your first major championship with the Apex Racing team?
Yeah, exactly. I went from being completely outpaced by the hard guys during the pre-qualification at Spa and during the Hockenheim, and to, well, being able to win a race, so yeah, pretty happy with this performance.
Congratulations, guys, on the victory. Hoping that we see you a bit more in some GT cars over the rest of 2021.
Thank you again.
So that was Kevin Ellis Jr. and his teammate Maxime Briand. Let's talk to the third step of the podium. Let's talk to Jamie Fluke and Zach Campbell. Jamie, you had a fun fight there with the 93 car and really some aggressive sends. I'm sure you had a lot of fun there. That 4-car fight for the race lead just looks so intense from our perspective.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's good to finally get battling these guys and really seeing what we can do against them. sometimes we're just not quite there, but this time, yeah, it's a lot of fun to get battling them. And yeah, got the move done on Charlie. I think he'd sort of facilitated it a little bit, but yeah, it's always, you know, a fun time trying to, you know, chase down Josh Rogers, obviously, you know, 2-time world champion in the Porsche Sports Super Cup. So yeah, enjoyed it, and yeah, really happy with the result today.
And I mean, you said it was happy to finally be fighting. Tell us, did the summer break kind of help you guys? Because I think it's fair to say the first half of the season didn't necessarily go the way that we would have wanted to see you guys performing, but second half very much more consistent, getting to grips with that Lamborghini, making your way towards the top 5 much more consistently. And I gotta say, Lewis said he needed to give you a hug after what happened at Monza in race number 2.
Yeah, so yeah, the summer break helped. The Spa 24, the SCO Spa 24 really helped build the confidence up, because yeah, it had been an inconsistent start to the season for the first half, but yeah, second half of the season we really started to iron out the little issues that have been sort of niggling us up to that point, and then yeah, we're just executing a little bit better. We're getting the car further up the field. The Lambo's been pretty strong in race trim all season, but it's hard then to do anything if you're 15th in the pack. So getting the car further up the field has been you know, something that we made a conscious effort to work on. And okay, yes, the Monza result was disappointing, to put it diplomatically. But yeah, it was still a confidence builder. It's like, okay, we're up there, we can fight, and then you know, 4 top 5s since then as well, for the last 4 rounds. Solidified, was it 4th in the championship? So, you know, more than happy with that.
And if you had that form earlier, I definitely think that you guys could have maybe even had a closer fight for 3rd. Zach Campbell, his final race outing for the Apex Racing team. Zach, I'm sure you're disappointed to be closing the chapter with your team, but at the same time, a really impressive championship to close things off. I'm sure you're still pretty happy as to how things went.
Yeah, these guys are trying their hardest to make me regret any decision that I've made. They've been amazing this entire SCO season. They did a fantastic job. They've always done a fantastic job, and yeah, I hated that we couldn't close in on Kova to get kind of that win there in the first race. But second race, same deal, just fighting some of the best in the business, and it was just a blast all around. This last round was way more fun than I expected it to be, and yeah, we certainly had a lot of fun.
I gotta ask you, I'm not trying to pile on as well here, but what has been your favorite moment? 2.5 years you've grown. I mean, you were part of the Powerslide Motorsports team before that, so it could have been a teammate of mine if you had stuck around there, but you've grown so much. You've had so many fun memories with the guys. What's been the highlight for your run with the Apex Racing team?
I got one moment that I'm thinking of that I can't say because Kev will get angry at me.
It's been my teammate, obviously.
Yes, absolutely being Jamie's teammate. I mean, fighting for the win at, you know, PES Interlagos, getting on the podium at Monza. I mean, everything they've done at Indy for me, they're just too many to mention. I mean, it was like it's been a good run, and you know, sad this chapter has to end, but you know, the future's looking pretty bright.
Congratulations, Zach, on your career with the Apex Racing team. I think your team boss has something he wants to say about you as well before we let you guys go.
Aww.
Yeah, thanks guys, thanks for letting me jump in as well. Yeah, so just wanted to give a bit of a public shout out to Zach and thank him for obviously being with us for 2.5 years. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to work with him. He is such a sensible and talented young man. Like, where he is going, they have got an absolute amazing driver and colleague that they're going to work with as well. You know, he come to us as an oval driver. That was what we recruited him for, you know, and look what he has achieved on the road. He's just, you know, it really is amazing. So he's going to be missed, you know, and I'm going to wish him all of the success in his future team and all of his endeavors. So yeah, it's been a pleasure, Zach. Thank you very much for all that hard work you put on.
No, thank you. I'm really glad the check cleared. If you could say that. I'm glad it didn't bounce. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you for everything.
You're quite welcome.
Congratulations, guys, on your run in this championship. Looking forward to seeing you guys more over the rest of 2021.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, SCO. Thank you, VRS, for everything. Fun championship. Can't wait for the next one.
So that was the Apex Racing team, the 98 car, Zach Campbell, Jamie Fluke, and team manager Alex Simpson. One more interview that we wanted to make our way and get to as well. Let's talk to the Kova Esports guys. Let's start with Antti Ahola. Antti, you missed out on the first couple of rounds of the championship when you guys took a victory at the Hockenheim Ring, of course. I'm sure you were a little disappointed to miss out on that, but ultimately it's a season where you guys were the main rivals for a lot of the championship to the guys that fought it out here today. I'm sure you guys are still pretty happy with how you've grown over the course of this summer.
Yeah, Tuomas and Pekka did a really great job at the first half of the season. There's not really much to say about it because they were really on top of the job. And then we had a little slump at the middle, but then we kicked it up a notch to the end, and here we are.
And what does the rest of this year, I guess, hold for you, Antti? I mean, you guys compete in a number of different championships, often competing in this BMW M4. Are we going to see you a bit more on RaceSpotTV?
Who knows? Because the fact is that I don't have much free time to sim race currently, so I'm only doing a race here and there. But you might see me now and then, so I won't be gone completely, let's put it that way.
Won't be too far, that's for sure. Tuomas, from your perspective, you competed, of course, in every single round of this championship. How much fun has it been to have another major GT3 championship back here on the iRacing service? Can't actually hear you, Tuomas, unfortunately. There we go.
Yeah, it's great. I was missing something like this, and actually getting to race against the Guandas, it's always nice.
What does the rest of the year hold for you then, Tuomas? I mean, are we going to see you be active? Potentially SCO Endurance coming up later this year? It's still to be announced the schedule and the classes of cars, but could we see you maybe in an LMP2 car, a GTE, or sticking in the GT3?
Yeah, no idea really. Right now there's not much schedule for the rest of the year. Obviously it's the Porsche eSport Super Cup coming next year. So yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah, most likely racing something.
And probably getting to grips with the brand new Porsche 911 992 GT3 Cup car that will be coming to the iRacing service shortly. Congratulations on your run, guys. Third place in the championship goes to Kova. So that wraps up our post-race interviews, and Lewis wraps up the season as well. I'm really quite disappointed that we have to say goodbye right now, because really, what fun that we had this season. So many different contenders at times, so many strong teams, and really, I think it's a very bright future for the Sports Car Open and potentially a future running of the Sprint Masters.
Yeah, of course. I mean, massive thanks not only to everyone behind the scenes, but all the competitors, everyone that watched as well. I mean, I'm the kind of person that likes stories in sim racing. It's not just about the racing themselves, it's about the stories we have across the season. And boy, have there been some stories across the season. Comeback fights, championship fights obviously came down to the wire. Team changes in the form of Zach Campbell as well. Stuff happens in sim racing, and sometimes we kind of miss some of the stuff that happens because it's all behind the scenes. But if there's one thing that we've learnt from motorsport, and it is something which is applying to sim racing as well these days, is what happens off the track is almost just as interesting as what happens on it, and we're definitely seeing that.
I should have asked where he's going to move and see if we could get him to slip up on the air as well. Well,
do us all a favour.
I felt a little bit, not sure if I should do that with his team manager. What's your highlight of the season? Because I have to be honest, I think Zolder was really, really fun seeing Altus take victory. Our first trip to the Red Bull Ring, I love seeing the Zebras victorious as well, but really I'm struggling to pinpoint just one moment. We've seen inter-team drama, the Coanda guys coming to blows. Just such a fun way to round out our summer of action here.
Yeah, there's a few for me that really stand out. I'll always remember that overtake that Pekka Toivonen put on the VRS Commander bunch into the arena section at Hockenheim to open the season. What a part of the season it was. But for me, and I'm sorry to Apex, because it actually comes down as a negative to you, and you know exactly what part I'm talking about now. As soon as I say that finish at Monza, absolute perfection.
And such a clean race that we had, right?
Yeah.
Monza, I mean, turn 1, lap 1, you kind of expect calamities. I mean, we've seen it not just on the virtual side of things, in the real world as well. And over the course of 2 hours there, we saw some really fun stuff. I do have to ask, if you were going to throw a new track onto the schedule for a potential 2022 season, can't pick the Hungaroring because I'm going to take that off the table. We know that's coming to the iRacing service soon. What would you think we should add for future iterations of this series?
Am I allowed to pick one that's still not released yet, but
Sure.
was recently announced?
Is it Not Kill?
Stand Down.
Oh, yes, let's go for an Australian flair. But I'm going to press you a bit more. Let's go European. Let's stick with the theme.
We'll focus on European. Oh, you've really got me here. What else? I mean, obviously you could throw Spa in there. You could throw. Oh, you've really thrown me under the bus here. I don't know what I'd put on there, actually. I mean, I'd like to throw a little bit of a curveball. I'm going to throw a British track on there. I'm going to throw one that not that many people like. We don't see it race very often, but always provides some decent GT3 racing.
Okay.
Snetterton.
I knew that's what you were going to say when you said it's something that people don't like. I'd agree. Snetterton would be great. But I've got to be honest. We went to the Nürburgring. Let's go racing around the full. Yeah, you know me.
Absolutely.
Anyone who knows me knows what I'm going to say there. Well, that is going to wrap things up here live on RaceSpotTV. Thank you for joining us. 6 rounds, I should say, 12 races. Ultimately, the championship came down to just one single point. It's Coanda, it's Joshua Rogers, it's Mitchell de Jong. They are your 2021 Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Masters Championship. We'll be back later this year with the Sports Car Open Endurance Series. Stay tuned on Sports Car Open social media to learn more about the classes of competition and the upcoming schedule as once more we go racing endurance style this coming winter. On behalf of the entire team at RaceSpotTV, for our producer in the first 5 rounds, Hugo Luis, for my co-commentator, Lewis McLeod, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Thank you for joining us here in 2021. We'll see you next time here on RaceSpotTV.